So I was editing the last episode after I got out of the hospital, for the
Yeah.
record. I was editing the episode and I was sifting through it, and then there's the moment where I have to like edit the plot twist moment. Yeah, and there's just this part where it seems I just hope that everyone believes you. I do. I do.
Do you really not believe that I enjoyed a
No,
Wes Craven
no,
movie? Is
well,
that really too
well,
much for you to take?
well, see, that's the thing is that I know you and I know you well, but our listeners might not. So I'm just saying that, I want to wholeheartedly endorse your endorsement to kind of lend it credibility. Now, I mean, not to imply that it didn't have it, but like, you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
Okay,
mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. Just making sure. Just making sure.
Welcome to Highguard.
Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray. And the last time you saw us, we Uno reversed again. And we off the back of a humiliating defeat was spurred into another humiliating defeat, but on my end this time. And now we sit here today, continuing our journey through this arc, where Jen recommended me Highguard, the game that shut down, what, last week now?
It shut down the day that we uploaded our last video.
Woo! The
So
day we uploaded.
anybody that wanted to give the game a look after hearing my recommendation was not able to.
Nope. And that was one half of the recommendation because Jen got the total victory. And additionally, I was also recommended to watch The Thinning and The Thinning 2 New World Order. And so naturally, I responded in kind by recommending Jen one of the best games ever made in the form of Bioshock. So today we are going to talk about these things, and we're gonna start off with Highguard. And let's just say that this
The
is
gods intervened to save you from my revenge. I have been vexed. I. What are you doing?
getting out my Steam Deck to show everyone that I attempted to replace the buttons on here because I had a dead A button and was like, I've had this sitting in my Amazon cart for a while now. I'm going to order these buttons, get this little kit, and I am going to replace them so that I can play Highguard without a dead button because there is nothing worse than playing a first-person shooter with shitty controls. And it died. It broke. It does not, the battery, I had to disconnect it, and then when I connected it again, it didn't turn on, and I haven't heard from Valve support yet. So I don't even know if I can technically get this fixed. And I'm really thrilled about it. Really, really happy about it. But I guess what we'll do is just determine that this is a sacrificial lamb that it will serve in its place. Unless,
Unless.
Jen,
Are you really about to act like you got one over on me because you managed to find a way to play high guard? You realize this is not
yeah?
you winning, right?
Yeah.
You really said, "Joke's on you, motherfucker. I got to play high guard."
You phrase it like that and it makes me sound stupid because I am, but
So, how did this happen? How did
okay.
you manage to actually play the game?
Okay. So here's the thing. I did not want this to turn into an episode 2 of Versus Wolves situation where I just completely fail to comply with the challenge given to me. So I was like, okay, my computer is by gaming standards junk. Will this run Steam? And you know what? It runs Steam if you turn down the resolution to be a window and you take down the frame rate and you turn off VSync and make the game look really bad. But alas, I played 3 rounds of Highguard.
So let me presage with what this game actually is.
Please.
So Highguard is a game that came out back in January that was developed by a new studio called Wild Light that was made up of alumni of people that had worked on games like Apex Legends, people that had worked on games like
Titanfall 2.
Titanfall. They've worked on Call of Duty games before. And like I said, this is a debut project for a new studio that, from what I can gather, was originally focused on being more like the game Rust, a more survival focused shooter that, based on the game that we ended up getting, probably had some large open world design implemented into it, but would probably take inspiration from Apex Legends' more diverse cast of characters, allowing for more player freedom and more like visual iconography, things like that. This game also boasted a kind of fantasy sci-fi hybridization in its imagery, but we were introduced to Highguard back in December at the Game Awards
The
when the
final
last
preview.
when the final preview of the game was introduced by Jeff Keighley, who apparently just thought the game was gonna be so good that he put it in the slot without like doing his normal business discussions about who gets that slot at the end. It seemed like he really believed in the project, maybe even knew some of the guys at Wildlight. I mean, he's Jeff Keighley, and
Yeah,
wanted to like do them a favor to hype up these guys' project. And the trailer came out, and the trailer was bad. Really, really bad. The trailer, frankly, did a horrible job at showing what the gameplay of Highguard would even be like. Because going back and watching this trailer after actually playing the game is a baffling experience.
it really is.
Because the only bit of gameplay that you see in the trailer is like the character abilities getting used
Yeah.
and the animation of the like shield domes being broken that you get when a raid starts. But the trailer does nothing to suggest anything about what the central game loop of Highguard is going to be. And Highguard is an entry in the hero shooter MOBA genre, which is based on this kind of gameplay loop of the game is basically built as a sport, right?
Mhm.
Where you have short matches with fixed objectives that have really tight constraints around them. The hero shooter aspect of it being that each player of the sport is playing a specific role that's based around specific constraints of like what is this character able to do to further the team, and then it's a team effort and you try to win the game. It's adapting like different types of game modes from games like Call of Duty from back in the day that were experimenting with different ways to use its central run and gun mechanics, but using the design of different characters as a way to diversify what kinds of games first person shooters can implement and represent and make a part of their central loops. So, just on a pure technical level, what did playing this game actually feel like for you on your broken ass computer?
Well, I'm not going to judge it too harshly for this, primarily because I don't think that there is much to judge harshly in this particular department, even though I obviously was not well equipped to handle this. But that being said, the big comparison everybody was throwing around when this kind of came onto the scene was Concord. Concord is the notorious hero shooter failure that was closed down 2 weeks after its release, after a terrible trailer and a ton of really bad press came out about the game, and it just like the character design of Concord was like disastrously poor. Like genuinely some of the worst attempts at trying to capture the hero shooter aesthetic craze I think I've seen. And if you take a look at the gameplay of Concord, it's like it doesn't look bad. It looks boring. Like even the gunplay looked substandard. Like it just didn't look visually interesting and it didn't look like mechanically it had much going for it that a bunch of other shooters didn't already have. And Highguard kind of got lumped in with the same thing. And I didn't play Concord, but I can say that at least a cursory glance, I feel like there is a lot more effort into making this game feel good. Because the thing is that it's a pretty like the shooting in it, the movement, the actual like nuts and bolts of it, it feels very good. Like this is the reason why shooters like Call of Duty have persisted this long, despite the fact that they've had budget issues, development issues, and all this thing, is that the engine that these games run on is like so expensive and so optimized well that shooting guns in any Call of Duty game, no matter how bad they are, feels fucking great. So it doesn't matter to a large populace who are consuming that, who just get it and socialize with their friends. And Highguard honestly feels closer to that level of, tactical twitch reaction based shooting. It feels good. Everything like even if like I didn't get any particularly notable drops or anything just because my luck is terminally fucking horrible and again I only played 3 rounds of this. But still, the actual gunplay in it feels nice. Movement feels nice. Skills feel nice. It is a game
Uh,
that just from how it moves on a base level, you can tell that this had money, this had resources, and this had talented people on the other end of the development spectrum. The problem I have with Highguard is that even from a couple of rounds, I was able to discern some really key issues with this game that I think are kind of a minor tragedy, all things considered, because I kind of have to come out with my thesis statement on this to kind of explain my thoughts here, in that I think that Highguard got a raw deal. I think that it was put into a completely unfair scenario. I think that the people behind it had little to no say in how all of this played out. It was something that they found out in retrospect. And this was a game that was built to have lasting support, because the thing is with these hero shooters is that you need to have like seasons. You need to have sort of windows of new content being pushed in, maybe
you
new
gotta have
character
things that keep
classes.
people coming back day after day.
And what does that take? Time, manpower, and money. You need to keep having these people work. And in today's modern gaming development climate, you need an astonishing amount of money to be able to make this keep going. Like Marvel Rivals is able to do this because the first word in that game is
Is Marvel.
Marvel, and they
Yeah.
have unlimited money, and they have artists who just absolutely love drawing your favorite characters with giant asses. Just the biggest asses you've ever seen in your life. And Highguard, it's a losing prospect out of the gate because you have to compete with a bunch of games who have been out for almost 10 years, if not 10 years now, and have had this content cycle and have all of this stuff. Like, again, Marvel Rivals isn't even that old, and the amount of content in that game is fucking crazy. Like, you will get your money's worth even if you don't spend money. It's just an investment of time if it's you do the free-to-play route. But with Highguard, I find every singular component of this game to be bare minimum competent and at best really fun. And then you throw all of it together and it becomes incomprehensible because it's it is entirely built out of modern gaming buzzwords. It's all these things like it's got the loot, it's got the hero shooter and the classes and stuff. It's got the siege mode. It's got the fucking oh hell. What's another thing that it takes from other games? Like the open world level design of this is
Yeah.
another big one that I think is maybe the key problem with the game, if I'm honest, because
I think the design of these maps are the main reason why I find this game impossible to enjoy.
bad. It's bad.
Because
It's actually bad.
the way that the characters are built to engage in combat just does not fit with the environments that you're in 95% of the time.
No. And here's the thing that like blows my mind is that you tell me there's a hero shooter and the maps are like procedurally generated. And instantly, my first thought is just, I don't want to play this because, like, if you've played these games, and I have played a lot of them over the years, like, I played multiplayer games starting with Call of Duty in like 2011, 2012, and stuff like that. And there was a period of time where I was quite good at those games. That period of time is long past, but I
You know
also
what
moved on to
people
games like
love?
Overwatch,
You know what people love reminiscing about in Call of Duty games? The
zombies.
old maps. The
Yes,
maps that are
yes.
good that people
Learning
like to play on.
Learning the maps is such a key foundational part of these games. Overwatch, that's a game that I feel like, well, Overwatch and Titanfall 2 in specific, because those are games that, like, Call of Duty is a very horizontal x-axis kind of game. It's like you can jump and do stuff, but it's like primarily you're on one plane with someone else, and there's just varying degrees of elevation. But with hero shooters that get a little bit more interesting with the sci-fi stuff and eventually get into like robots and shit, you start being able to move and use all three dimensions, and the maps have to be designed around this. And that's how you can start, like, you start learning where good places are to hide particular characters, where, you want to set up your defensive options, good routes to send all of your particularly like hard-hitting offensive people. This is such an integral part of how you play these games. Like, I remember spending the entire first month playing Overwatch, literally just trying to learn how the maps worked because that's half the game. The other half is the Twitch reaction shooting. And with Highguard, it's like you just never have a great idea of space. You just never have a good idea of direction or being able, like, it makes defensive options in this game actively unfun. I
Yeah,
don't
no.
know theoretically how you are supposed to play this game in a way that is not highly offensive.
Yeah, so much of the design of this game focuses on search and destroy as a gameplay style where you go into a specific place, you plant the bomb, you wait for the bomb to go off, but it doesn't matter where you are because this is what Overwatch gets right is that player positioning is so important to objective completion.
Yes.
But with this game, it's completely out of the loop. Like it does not matter where
Negligible.
you are standing ever,
Mm-mm.
because you can either teleport back to your base if you're indisposed, teleport to a raid as it's starting if you're not coordinated with your team, and you don't have to stay near the objective to complete the objective. So when you're doing the search and destroy stuff, if you're on defense, it's a miserable experience because
Boring.
all that the enemy team has to do is take over a room and then they spawn camp you even though you're on defense.
I saw this happen to people. Like the first round I played, I picked Condor, which was like a big mistake of mine, just because that's like clearly a support class, and I like started playing and I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing this. And then I switched over to Atticus because I was like, I'm just gonna pick the boring gun shooting man because that's like the default way you're supposed to experience a game like this, and I'm just gonna do the nuts and bolts guy. And that was more fun. But I saw people actively, anyone who did not play a highly offensively oriented class basically did absolutely nothing other than die. Like I was baffled at this singular choice, especially when I was able to pick up on this because YouTuber Bricky has a really good, really insightful video about this game. And he kind of illuminated something that I didn't even think about in that, like, I was just like the matches that I played were so uneventful. Like there was
They're
so much
so
dead air,
boring. There's so much
slow.
downtime in the game, man.
And like it has to do with the level design, it has to do with the way that the character abilities kind of mix and match, or well, really don't mix and match with each other. And again, like the biggest foundational issue with the game's core game mode is the fact that it's only 3v3. Like Bricky went out of his way to be like there was a mode added later that basically lets you do 6v6, and he was like, I had so much more fun with this just because there were more people and it was less about like specific objectively oriented stuff, and it just turned into basically a team deathmatch thing, and it's just way more fun that way. And I don't doubt that for a moment, frankly, because if you strip away some of the ancillary stuff, it feels good to play this game. It's just not built to synergize with itself. It's the Ubisoft mentality. How every Ubisoft franchise over the course of the last 10 years has basically morphed into the same game, becoming this amalgamate of it's an open world. You have to go to the tower, and then the tower gives you a more illuminated map, and then you have to go to the next tower and capture that one. Like everything is Assassin's Creed. Every single thing they have is Assassin's Creed. Highguard's design mentality is exactly the same. It's procedurally generated worlds, hero shooter, all this stuff, and they combine it together in a way that's functional but almost never fun.
With the open world and the looting mechanics, and even I would say the pacing of combat encounters, what this game most resembles is Apex Legends. But
Mhm.
what makes this different from Apex Legends is one, the environments are more fun to move around in because characters have better movement abilities in Apex Legends. Not to
Much.
say that the like mounts system in this is bad, I don't think it is, but it leaves all the characters' movement feeling very samey.
Mhm.
Whereas you could play characters in Apex Legends that treated movement very differently, and the environments that they were in would benefit some of those characters more than others. So there was strategy that would be implemented there. Same with the wandering around looking for loot phases that define so much of the early game of matches in this. That stuff is what Apex Legends is all about. But Apex Legends also has 100 players in it that you have to work around. So you're going to be getting into combat encounters, even just,
Constantly.
skirmishes more often than you are in this. And those are going to mean something because you only have one life in Apex. If you die and you got to go back to the beginning. In this, if you die before the raid starts, you just respawn and you go back in. Like getting into fights before the shield breaker has spawned in or before a raid has started is basically worthless. It's better to just retreat and go look for loot somewhere else. And so I spent so much time in this game just like wandering around, looking for stuff to pick up, waiting on the game to tell me where the shield breaker was going to be so I would know where to go next, and then hoping that my teammates would show up because this game is awful to play if you don't have voice chat and you can't coordinate with your team because if one guy's just
God.
dicking around, your whole operation is going under.
It made me think about the only time where I ever tried to play League of Legends, and I played half of a game and quit because, well, I mean, it's League of Legends. Can you fucking blame me? And it's this thing where the whole time I was playing it, I was like I couldn't escape one persistent thought, and that was, how have we worked backwards from Team Fortress 2? That game is so old and does all of this so much better and even has bigger maps than most games like this do. And not to mention, because support for Team Fortress 2 has been so consistent with Valve, you can mod whatever the fuck you want into that game. You can probably mod half of the game mechanics that aren't even in it, that are in Highguard, into it, just because, again, that's the way Steam and Valve operate. Is they really like the consumer and the mods and the community so active and all that stuff. And it's like the fact that we have basically just turned these games as service for those who aren't aware of the acronym, the fact that we have all of these and they are actively hindering and hobbling themselves when other games that are free or way cheaper than they are and you can go and have a big player base. Like people are still playing Team Fortress 2 in the year of our Lord 2026. You can hop onto that game right now and have a fantastic time. And this just has there's just so much bullshit. Like the loot system was exactly the thing that I learned was just like this is how I know that this game is a mess because you know what? I'll freely admit here, one of my biggest gaming sort of like junk food enjoyable things is the Borderlands games because I love Diablo style like loot-based shit because I don't know, I the Skinner box in my brain gets scratched by it. But like with Borderlands, it's just like all the, if the guns are interesting and they're fun to use and if I turn off the volume in those games because I can't stand the fucking
Turn down
writing
the
at all,
dialogue.
I literally play those games on mute. Like just can't do it. But like I have fun with them and I like that system and I like being able to have variety and unlocking stuff. But when you put loot in a hero shooter, it's inherently like this is so you can charge me money later. Like that's what this is. You want me to be able to like either farm for keep playing these games until you get something that's like legitimately viable, which means I have to invest an ungodly amount of time to actually make the game fun because sometimes in these games they confuse oh better loot means that you'll have more fun. So does that mean if I don't get better loot and I'm just unlucky I'm not going to have fun? And that's kind of the case with this. And like there should be no place for this game mechanic in this game. Like it should not be here. Like Overwatch
The
understood
loot
this,
does not
Team
make
Fortress 2
sense.
understood this. You need to have like you just need to basically design it so that it's good and fun and not dependent on a randomizer or trying to do microtransactions in the future, which inevitably would have happened in order to keep the game going. And the worst tragedy of all of this is that I believe that the devs behind Highguard believed in this game and wanted to give it a shot. And frankly, if this game had been not positioned the way that it was, I feel like it's not impossible to assume that momentum could have gone with this and they would have been able to correct so many of these problems because that's kind of where we are in game development right now is that if you make one of these games as a service games and you're a small team, you are able to at least, you're able to take customer input and you're able to change things. And what that requires is having the game go on long. This is not a game that is ever going to improve or be better if it gets shut down after a month. So it is kind of it sucks. That said, I did also find out that this game is kind of dishonestly marketed because something that nobody mentioned and that I only learned a week ago is that Jen, have you ever heard of the company Tencent?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they bankrolled this entire game.
Yeah,
Backdoor and
I
just
learned about that.
did
I was gonna bring that up if you
yeah,
didn't.
they Chinese game development company and infinite money printer Tencent bankrolled this game and essentially saddled this
Allegedly.
allegedly and saddled this tiny comparative development team with managing this entire thing. And then basically the Game Awards thing just left these guys out to dry, like completely. And so I'm just like I'm
I
baffled
even
by
heard
every decision made in
I
releasing this
read that
game.
the initial plan was to do something similar to what Valve is doing right now with Deadlock, their
Yeah.
hero shooter,
Hmm.
which was just to quietly release it, intentionally keep hype to a minimum in order to more gradually bring people in and let the game speak for itself. But this announced itself as a basically an Overwatch killer
Yep.
or, the replacement
Which
for Concord or whatever.
no.
Yeah. And it's such horrible timing because Overwatch has been getting a complete revamp right now, and it's been really good and really fun to sit through. Like, they dropped Overwatch 2, they changed a bunch of stuff, they added a bunch of new characters in order to bring as many people back in as possible. Like, they planned a big drop in order to get people playing Overwatch again for its 10th anniversary, and it worked because they were able to take their time and implement it when they knew it was right to do. But I really do think there was no saving this game from the problems that just plague its gameplay. Beyond the issues with the user interface, beyond issues with quality of life, the bare bones design of Highguard as a game just does not come together and is not as good as its contemporaries.
No, and it that's the thing is that we have learned absolutely nothing in that. I mean, if we want to be real about this, is that this phenomenon has existed since World of Warcraft, going right back to Blizzard. How do you know, do you remember, or were you plugged in at all to when these games and when MMOs took off, and every game after World of Warcraft was trying to position itself as the WoW killer, and every single one of them failed. Like there were ones that became successful in spite of themselves because just the PC gaming community really rallied around them, like Guild Wars 2. But if you compare the success of Guild Wars 2 to World of Warcraft, it's not just apples and oranges, it's and skyscraper. There's no contest here. They have an infinite money machine over at Blizzard because they're like the most evil company on the face of the planet that's not Nvidia. And they can pump new content into these things consistently without breaking a sweat. And they have a lot of people on their teams who, actually do care about this, and then they get underpaid and fired. But this this did not have a Blizzard behind it. It was never built to equip to be able to make itself better. It was sent
Well,
out
I guess
to
it
die.
did until it didn't, because it
Yes,
had
it
Tencent behind it, allegedly.
yes, it
But
did until it didn't. And I mean, like, again, no aspect of this on any level really makes any sense to me, but it's still something while I was playing where I'm like, I see potential here because, like, I don't hate the idea of the aesthetic of Highguard at all, like fantasy, sci-fi, putting that together. It's too generic in execution, but I do think it could be refined. I do think you can build something out of that aesthetic. And in fact, we're probably going to talk a lot about aesthetic in video games in this episode, I think. And this one doesn't have like, again, you look at Overwatch, for instance. Like, look at those character designs. They're so great. They cut such fantastic silhouettes. They're all cool. They're all unique. They have all become like super iconic. Like Tracer is like one of the most recent like mascot characters that have been introduced in the last 10 years that are
just
actually
like a
recognizable.
year after Overwatch was out, you could see Tracer in Ready Player One as like an homage to gaming history.
And there's also the fact that the character models for Overwatch are widely distributed in certain corners of the internet for specific purposes that 3D modelers are quite fond of that game for many reasons. But like you
I know
take a
what
look,
you are.
yeah, they take a look at the Highguard character designs, and it's like these are clearly better than Concord. Like we are comparing them to that a lot, and I get why, but those were all total non-starters. Here, I'm like, with a different aesthetic, like, shift things to the left, refine a little bit, I can see how this can work. But it's again, it's not enough. This would be adequate for like the starting open beta of a game. But like for like a release, it's like I did not. The thing is that I didn't also like once I actually got a character who, didn't suck, I was like, I'm not having like this is a to me like the experience I had with it, and again, it wasn't long. It was like a 6 out of 10 experience. Like it was baseline. I did a couple things that I thought were interesting and neat, and I was bored a little bit, but like not too much. But it was just it moved the needle enough for me to be like, I had an okay time, but like if I had to play this for more than 2 hours, I don't really know if I could do that.
I got a few more than 2 hours into this, and I'll just tell you, not that it's the game's fault, but like waiting for matches certainly did not make the experience any
Dude,
more
the final
enjoyable.
match I had to wait for like 10, 12 minutes.
Because the
Like,
the announcement of the shelving of this game did not give it a last minute
no,
pile on.
no, people did not be like, oh,
I
you
was
gotta play
initially
this.
curious to see if it would happen because like Anthem got a last minute
Yes.
pile on before it got shut down recently.
I figured it wasn't outside the realm of possibility, and like again, it's a game that has far more merits than a lot of other projects like this, but it wasn't enough. And it's like I don't blame anyone for not being interested in this just because like again, this was sent out like a sheep to slaughter. Like this failed before it even had the chance to begin, even though I don't think it would have succeeded. It's just on every level, this game is perfectly encapsulating everything wrong with modern gaming.
I arrived at a question when thinking about how to review this, which is my final takeaway from Highguard that it could have been so much better if it just had more time and resources and support put into, or is my takeaway, they should not have shipped this like this. There would be no fixing this. And the more I played, the less I could accept any other reality. Like, you should not have shipped this. There is no saving this. It doesn't work for what it's trying to do. It's not worth it, which is sad to say because I don't think that this is the game that they set out to make back in the early 2020s when they first announced that they were working on
No,
this.
I don't think so
But
either.
what we have, it's like No Man's Sky, right? People decided that No Man's Sky was worth saving and worth fixing.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not that.
No. And that's the thing is that I feel like that has happened so often. Like again, the two biggest stories when I remember paying attention to like video games and video game press, the two biggest stories when I first started paying attention to gaming journalism were Diablo 3 coming out and it being a fucking nightmare on release that was plagued with technical issues, controversy after controversy, always online DRM, just like an endless list of problems that at the time nobody would have been like, yeah, Diablo 3 is something that people will be playing in 5 years. And the other one is Mass Effect 3 shitting its pants at the very end. And now we live in a world where the Mass Effect 3 ending has been patched to be slightly better, and people love Diablo 3 now. So the idea of a game taking time and then being retroactively improved is not an impossibility anymore.
Goes all the way back to Vampire the Masquerade from, and really what happened here is that game development companies saw what modders were doing
Hmm.
and wanted that for themselves, right?
Yeah.
You don't want a repeat of Vampire the Masquerade because then the fans are the people that made the game good. You got to do that shit yourself now if you're gonna do it. And so now, as the fans, we get to decide when that was worth doing as well. And in this case, it wasn't.
And like this is why we still even have people who are like console gamers in the year of our Lord 2026 is because there is just so much simplicity in just buying a game and putting it in and having it work. When you actually have to rely on things like seasonal updates and new content being released in order to make your game worth playing, it
I had to go into
becomes
my BIOS
such a
just to launch
headache.
this game. I had to learn new things about how my computer works just to play
I
this fucking game because of the anti-cheat.
I basically same. Like I was just like, it's a good thing I don't use this regularly for anything because this is a fucking nightmare. But that is just the thing, is that it is endemic of everything wrong with modern gaming without any one element of it truly being poor. And that's why I find it so goddamn frustrating. It's a mess and then it becomes bad rather than it being poorly thought out or maligned or just, not up to snuff. It's like I do think that there is a universe where this game gets better. I do. But we never had a chance of living in that universe. It just wasn't compatible with the reality that we live in right now, and that sucks. I feel bad for the people who made this game. I feel bad for everyone involved who isn't Tencent. I feel bad for the people who tried to play this and had a good time with it and then it got abruptly shut down. I feel bad for like, anyone who tries to do this kind of hero shootery thing because it's not like another artistic medium where, you can have two different war movies come out in a given year, and everyone will go see both of them. If you
There's
have
two
two
movies
hero
called The
shooters
Mummy
released in a
coming out
year,
this year, Jake.
yeah, exactly. We're having Dune 3 and The Odyssey come out this year, and they're gonna be two of the biggest, like, they're both going to make $1 billion. It's gonna happen. If two hero shooters are released in the same year, one of them is dying.
One of
It
them
is
is
an either or.
Battleborn.
Yeah, it is
Remember
there is no
Battleborn?
there's no middle ground anymore. It is either you are a success, you are a failure, and you also have to be like an immediate success. You need to have so much money, so much manpower, so much time, so many resources. So honestly, this is like of the bad things you've recommended to me on this show. This has been like the thing that has been the least excruciating to experience that has made me the most existentially sad. So,
That's a wild way to phrase it. I love it.
yeah, really. And if I was giving the experience based on our rating scale something, I do have to account for existential dread, unfortunately, because the context informs this so much. So like under normal circumstances, if it's just the game I was talking about, I'd probably give this like a 2 out of 5 just because it's not like it's just far from the most painful thing I've ever experienced, but when you account for everything it represents, this has got to be at least a strong 3. It's such a disappointing state of affairs to be reminded of, and I hated having to engage with this critically because it just reminded me of how cynical I am about gaming as like a medium and as a commercial entity right now. Like I feel so disillusioned with the market and everything. It's why I've unplugged from games the most, the amount of like since like the start of the decade. It's why I've like really gotten into emulation and really just kind of like, yeah, I've got my, well, I mean, I had my Steam Deck, but like, I played lots of things,
Rest in peace. Play taps for
but
Highguard and the Steam Deck.
yeah, but that's the thing is that I have my Nintendo Switch 2 and that's got Resident Evil Requiem on it, so I can't really say that I feel like I'm missing out on a whole lot right now because, I like getting games that work and will work in 10 months so that I can revisit them. I like being able to revisit games. I'm still kind of the brand of, I'm an elder Zoomer at this point, and I'm still kind of millennial coded in the way that I want to be able to own things. I like physical media. I want to be able to, in 2 years down the line, I want to be able to play the games that I'm playing right now to just revisit them and stuff. And engaging with gas games just makes me like, I don't, this is all temporary. This could all vanish in like tomorrow. Like, and I hate that.
I've so many times throughout the years since this game is released, I've just like every now and then I'll just randomly go back to Fortnite on a whim because I have friends that love playing Fortnite. Every time I go back, the game is just like completely changed in a way that
Mhm.
I don't recognize it anymore. Fortnite has like Ship of Theseus itself dozens of times over at this point. It's a very
Fortnite was
erratic
pitched
thing
as
to
a
think about.
Minecraft killer. Do you all remember that? Because I fucking remember that. I remember getting a Game Informer magazine. You remember Game Informer magazines? I read the articles talking about Fortnite when it was in development at Epic Games, and they were talking about it as a like fort defense game with Minecrafty crafting elements, and
Yeah, it was
now
like
it
Left
is
4 Dead 2 with Minecraft stuff in it.
and now this is like I remember I don't know exact actually yeah it was Wooly and Pat from Castle Super Beast were talking about the reason that Fortnite is popular is not because of really anything inherent with the game. The reason Fortnite is popular is because it has subsumed Call of Duty as the way that teenage boys interact with each other in like a social context. And it's like, yeah, that's actually it. And like I don't like I had my version of that in multiplayer lobbies and everything, but like the idea of engaging with that now to me is just like I just want to play a game. I just want to be able to play a game and not have the attachments of like, oh, it's always online or you have to play with people or it's just like I like insularity a little bit. I like my experience to be my own. I like multiplayer stuff every once in a while, but I just the way that it's moving and shaping everything just it exhausts me. It's
There's a
why Nintendo, as terrible as a company as they are very reliable in this way.
There's a handful of games out there that through community engagement start to feel more like engines than games themselves, just with the variety of methods of engagement. Like
Yes.
I would say that about like Minecraft
Yep.
and basically any game that has a heavily modded community, you can
Hmm.
basically treat as its own engine.
Hmm.
Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, like you can
Yep.
play
Yep.
so many kinds of games in those games because things like GTA Online and things like how flexible Minecraft is as a game make it like it's its own engine that you can design your own games in.
Yeah.
But Fortnite is just that explicitly now. Like
Yep.
Fortnite is basically an operating system at this point.
Yes. Yes. It is a
It's
way to
so
make,
strange to me. I can't stand it.
yeah, this is just
I
something
really
that
don't like engaging with games in this way.
it presents an interesting dichotomy because like I used to remember the like you could do this in games like Little Big Planet 2 where you could essentially like make games of different genres using that game's level creator, and it was just like it was so creative and so interesting, but because these things have to be so universal now, it's like it optimizes all of the interesting things out of it and just makes it a vehicle, kind of like you said. And I'm like, again, I get it. If I was a teenager, right now, I would play Fortnite with my friends in order to talk to them in the way that I did with Call of Duty, because Lord knows I did not play Call of Duty for as long as I did because it was an engaging video game. I did it because it let me shoot guns and talk to people. It just, I value the crafted experience so much as somebody who engages with film and books and all of that stuff. And when you give me more freedom, like I feel like it becomes a little bit less special, and it's like you have to make the video game. And like there's a place for it, but there is also like I don't, if you let your hands off the reins of this too much, it just makes you feel like I have to make my own fun because you didn't.
We're getting a little away from
This
Highguard
sucks.
in this respect,
This
but yeah,
sucks. I hate this.
this sucks. All right, we're done talking about Highguard.
Okay, all right.
Um,
No more Highguard. No more.
rest in
Bioshock
peace.
or Logan Paul?
The worst. Two roads. Rapture. Logan Paul.
Rhiannon just called over from the bed, just being like, Jesus fucking Christ. Exactly. Exactly my point. Which way, Western man?
Let's do
Um,
Bioshock first. Let's
okay.
stick with the games. Let's just do a
So
smooth transition.
So I recommended Jen Bioshock, even though I know you had played it, but you played it a long time ago, and we kind of, when we started the show, had the caveat of if we haven't experienced something in a really long time, it can be recommended to the other person just as a brush up or being familiar with it. I don't know how much of it you played or if you beat it,
I
but
did not get very far back in the day, so a lot of this was fresh for me.
perfect. Awesome. Because I have such vivid memories of when I started to take gaming seriously. When I was like, when I was getting into that phase of gaming, when I started paying attention to things like the Diablo 3 and Mass Effect 3 story. And I was like, I need to look up games that have been acclaimed, that have been released in like the last 10 years, and I need to play them. I want to play the ones that look interesting to me. And, I go off the recommendations of various tastemakers who are on things like YouTube. And at the time when I was getting into things, Bioshock Infinite was like this insanely big teased thing. It was like Bioshock Infinite and The Last of Us and Grand Theft Auto 5 were coming out within a like 3 month long window. And the entire gaming world was anticipating all three of these with bated fucking breath. And when I took a look at all of them, I was like, okay, Last of Us. This looks good. I don't have a PlayStation 3, and this is being released at the height of zombie oversaturation, so I don't really care about that right now. I'm sure it's fine, but I won't play it for the time being. Grand Theft Auto, never interested me. I don't really care. Whatever. Bioshock Infinite, on the other hand, had this insane trailer and this insanely cool looking art style and this like just stuff I had never seen before. And I was like, this looks legit. I want to buy this, but I was just like, oh, there are other Bioshock games. I should play Bioshock 1. Everyone says it's a classic. I've, been playing more first-person shooters. I will start this and see where it takes me. And so it was one of the first kind of games of its kind that I played. And I didn't know anything about it going into it. I went in completely fucking blind. And it was one of those things where by the time I was finished with it after like 2-ish weeks, I think, it was all I could think about. I was watching videos about it. I was reading reviews, all of this stuff I was engaging with. It was like the moment when I had first looked up film criticism and started reading Roger Ebert reviews and was like, whoa, I'm invested in critique now. That's how I did it with games. And I haven't played Bioshock in a while, and I actually did go back and play it for this as well. And I wanted to just re-experience the game. I hadn't played the remaster. I played the original version on the Xbox 360 at the time, so I wanted to finally give that a shot and just see how it holds up just because it is an old game. It's 20 years old now. But it's one of those things where it was a landmark release for the time. It's a beloved game, but at the same time, games as an art form kind of suffer the most from age because they are the youngest artistic medium. So when you go back 5 years, you're like, oh wow, 5 years really was a different time. So you go back 20 years, and it was a really different time. So Bioshock as a prospect is kind of an intimidating beast just because this is such a dense game with so much going on and so much like to it. I guess, what was your initial experience a long time ago with BioShock? What made you stop playing it, and revisiting it now, how was it? Because this is such a game where like the opening hour of it is such a like, it ingratiates you into this experience in such a grandiose and like fascinating way that I feel like it's one of the most like just famous and even like beloved opening stretches of any game. Like the stretch of you getting to the lighthouse all the way to basically picking up a revolver. Like that's some of the most iconic shit that happened in gaming in the 2000s.
Back in the day, I mean, I was in a similar phase that you were in when I tried to play this game for the first time, which is that I was in high school. I was getting more interested in the idea of games as a medium, and so I was looking for like classic stuff to play. So I went and played like what did I get through at the time? Like Spec Ops: The Line, which it had a couple years behind it
Yep.
at the time.
Yep.
Shadow had just come out, so I played that. I really liked
Mhm.
that. But when I was like trying to really get back to the classics, one of the games that I attempted to play at the time was Fahrenheit, and
Those
one
quick
of the
time
games
events, baby. Whoo boy.
one of the games that I also tried to play at that time was BioShock. And I got a couple hours in and I really don't know what made me drop off. I think I just got to the point where I was expected to backtrack so
Mhm.
extensively through one of the levels and I just like got frustrated and then abandoned it without realizing that I was abandoning it. It was
Mm.
just one of those things. I can't really
It
answer
happens.
for myself from 10 years ago in this regard. But man, 2007 is an interesting time to be alive.
Isn't
Holy
it?
crap.
Isn't it?
Because I mean, BioShock is such an interesting move from the studio because I think going into this while thinking about System Shock
Yes.
is really interesting because I played
Bioshock, for
System
the
Shock.
record, is a spiritual sequel to System Shock 1 and System Shock 2, which are older PC games that have a very. It's basically Bioshock, but with like not really cyberpunk, but a cyber horror twist.
And what I think is interesting about BioShock is that it's an attempt at an immersive sim is not necessarily the way to call it, but
It's
like
close.
it's a very immersive first-person shooter with a lot of, loot collecting and a lot of retracing your steps and a lot of semi-open world stuff. And it's combining that with narrative aspirations of a blockbuster feature film
Oh,
and like
yes.
an all-time great science fiction novel is
Hmm.
what this is really aspiring to reach because you have this very like I understand why this was an infinite more so was compared directly to Citizen Kane because it's evoking so much of the time period
Oh,
that
yes.
Citizen Kane arrived in, where it's the and BioShock 1 especially because it's post World War II Art Deco, transatlantic rhetoric in the dialogue of the characters, and like, showy Nightmare Alley style circus aesthetics going
Metropolis.
on. Yeah, Metropolis, Nightmare Alley is all over this game.
It's a very sin-illiterate game.
Yeah, it's a very cineliterate game, but also in a lot of its beat to beat tone, it's a very silly game. Like I
Oh
kind
yeah.
of loved the silliness of so many of the NPCs who are just, it reminded me of Alan Wake 1, where all the possessed
Yeah.
dudes are walking around talking about like, you need some yard work? Bah, bah, bah." Uh,
Yeah, like the splicer dialogue, like if you listen to them and stuff, they have these thick fucking like New England again, like transatlantic accents, and they talk funny, and it's like it is so, but the thing is that to me, I think why BioShock, like why the setting of it works so well for so many people is that because it's all in concert with itself in a way that a lot of games at the time simply weren't. Like video game NPCs were kind of their own thing in that they had their own language. They spoke in tutorials. They spoke in weird, affected dialogue that was meant more for the player than it was the world. Whereas BioShock is way more oriented around being wholly immersive. Like, yeah, some of these are like really like silly and stuff, but it all works within the strange elevated tone of BioShock because everyone is talking to each other like they are a place that existed before you arrived in it. Like your presence within Rapture is kind of like it's important for the game's narrative, but like in terms of the game's world, you really do feel like you're coming into it en media res. Like you just like it basically it's Rapture post collapse, but you feel like all of this is still kind of in the process of happening, and you're just a strange agent discovering it in real time, which is built upon later, but there's so much that this game does with the start of it. Like you start off in the airplane and you have the photograph and you play the main character who's referred to as Jack. And it seems like he's trying to go home for somewhere or he's got some kind of objective that he's, on the plane with, and then the plane crashes. You swim up to this lighthouse and then you are immediately greeted to a giant bronze statue of this Orson Welles looking motherfucker named Andrew Ryan, which, for those of
what
you who
if what
don't
if
know,
What if Walt Disney actually managed to build Epcot as the paradise utopia city is kind of the premise of the game in a lot of respects?
what if Walt Disney read Atlas Shrugged and was like, there's a lot of ideas in this that I like. For those of you who don't catch it, Andrew Ryan, anagram, we are Ayn Rand. That is kind of the philosophy behind a lot of the like is that this is a game that is ideologically about the consequences of objectivism because Andrew Ryan is an objectivist. He wants to start a society completely free of morals. He wants to start a society completely free to scientifically innovate, to pursue the arts without any inhibitions. He essentially wants the human race to pursue the route of progress that the Drukhari do in Warhammer 40K, where they descend into lascivious, just complete overly decadent, just like way indulgent. Like everyone will have their needs met, but everyone drives themselves insane because they are in pursuit of constant more pleasure. And basically, there is this like you discover that rapture under the surface of the water as you go down into the elevator in that amazing little sequence that shows you everything and the little squid and you have the speech from Ryan. And it's like you get this impression that he basically just, this industrialist, just built Atlantis and then got a bunch of semi like-minded people, scientists and like people with money, obviously, and they built this society under the ocean. And the second you get there, it is completely in ruins. Everything is completely fucked. Every denizen or resident is either dead or so drugged out of their mind that they're just killing each other without like just murder. It's just they're killing each other, they're fighting for the resources and scraps. tons of stuff has collapsed. Like the engineering part of the like place has like completely just gone under. Everything sucks. It's all collapsing, and you basically need to find a way to get out of there and ultimately become involved in the narrative by your guide, who refers to himself as Atlas. And he is a guy who is like, I am stuck here and my family is on the other side of Rapture. I need you to go and help them. If you help them and bring them to me, we can all escape together. So that is your objective, and you have to go through the various districts of Rapture in order to accomplish goals, meet characters, and discover what exactly led to the collapse of this place and what the narrative behind all of it is. And perhaps there is something a little bit more going on with your main character. But the star of the show in Bioshock, to me, is based on the couple of games that I've made you play, like specifically Bioshock and Luigi's Mansion. I think it's very obvious that I value environmental storytelling so much in games that I
Yeah.
love. And BioShock, to me,
Silent Hill 2 does this as
Silent Hill
well.
2, another phenomenal example. BioShock is Rapture. It is the setting. It is the Art Deco. Like, I love just existing in this game. I love walking around. I love seeing the design of everything. Every room in this game is unique, which I know is probably not a big deal now, but in 2006 and 2007, yeah, this being this big, diverse place, it really did mean something. And the structure of like the backtracking and everything, my galactic brain take is that if you want to call BioShock any genre, it's a first person Metroidvania. This game has more in common with
Yeah,
Metroid Prime and maybe even survival horror games than it does your garden variety first person shooter because, well,
which makes sense because it's following up System Shock, which has a lot of survival horror instincts as well.
yes, 100%. And it also has a lot to do with like System Shock is a game that plays with the idea of narrative and like following instructions and like following like the guiding voice in your head that tells you what to do and how it can lie to you. And there is kind of a similar thing carried over in BioShock, but basically you're going through these different districts, you're collecting different weapons, you're getting different power-ups because within this society, they have essentially commodified and capitalized on superpowers. You can
Yeah.
inject things into your wrist that allow you to shoot lightning, shoot fire. And what I love about this power system is that it allows increased interactability with your environment. You can,
Yes.
power up lights and you can electrify places that have been flooded in order to stun enemies so that they are they are frozen in place while you can shoot them. You can constantly take advantage of your environment in cool ways. You can use the telekinesis thing to get objects and toss them at people and stun them. Every new power up you get allows you to interact with Rapture's environment even more than you did previously.
Yes, I love the power system in this game. I think what I want to talk about is this really interesting thing that I've arrived at where I've identified something that I think is interesting and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, which is that
Go for it.
video games in this era
Hmm.
were really, some of them ended up really vying for cultural legitimacy beyond the purview of the
Hmm.
video game player, in a sense.
Oh yeah.
Of like, we talk about games like BioShock and BioShock Infinite, and we talk about, other games of its era that kind of trans medium that, even if you don't
Hmm.
like video games all that much, you gotta play like Ocarina of Time or
Yeah,
like BioShock. Like, I really do think this is a good example of a must play game for the historical narrative that video games have kind of
for sure.
unfurled for themselves because the game is not that long.
No.
It has a large narrative emphasis, especially for a first-person shooter, especially
Oh
for the time
yes.
that it's coming out. And it has really identifiable cultural touchstones sitting within it that people that need some kind of in will be able to get a lot out of the like Art Deco nostalgia
Hmm.
or the like Ayn Randian objectivist stuff is a really easy in for people that don't know a lot about games but are really interested in stories.
Oh yeah.
And what I think is interesting about BioShock is that I find it the most like, what's the word I'm looking for? The intelligentsia by which so many of this game's ideas are approached is so sporadic and so
Oh yeah.
wide to
Hmm.
me because this game has a lot of great ideas about video games
Oh
that
yes.
it explores in the most blunt and simple
Oh
and
yeah.
can you believe we're doing this ways possible in a
Yeah.
way that makes BioShock feel elementary and extremely brazen
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
because I love so many of the ideas going on in this game, but there are times where I found it's almost objectivist in its own design, commitment to making its ideas as blunt as possible,
Oh yeah.
kind of aesthetically frustrating in a way that wrapped back around to me being able to end up enjoying the game a lot more
Hmm.
because this game is so goddamn didactic. When the morality system of this game is based on looking the player in the eye and saying, "You wouldn't kill this little
It's
girl, would you?"
it's
I'm just
also
like, "Come on,
I
dude."
don't know if you know this or not, but this is kind of notorious now in that BioShock's morality system is fundamentally broken. Because if you pick the deliberate, like basically the game gives you this sort of this choice essentially is that there are these things in the game called little sisters, which are these little girls who have been experimented on by the scientists in Rapture that have basically made them in order to house and harvest Atom, which is this resource that they use to build the like superpowers and stuff. Like again, I think a great example of what you're talking about is purely the fact that the two main resources in the game are literally called Atom
Adam
and
and
Eve,
Eve.
which is like a little bit like, all right, Ken Levine, slow your roll there, pal. But basically, the little sisters appear in the game, and you are presented with an option in that you can either kill them and absorb more of their atom, which will immediately give you a better reward that will let you like use that to buy new power-ups and stuff, which will directly affect you, or you can take the route where you save them and then they run away, but you don't get as much Atom. But the thing is that the game rewards you with more Atom in like, a different way. Like you'll just get it from a different character or from a different venue that will give you more. So the game, like, it has a great idea in this, and it's just like, do you sacrifice this kid for better short-term rewards, or do you make the game more difficult for yourself by making the right moral decision? But unfortunately, the game steps on itself by rewarding you more for the moral choice. So you are not in, if you know this ahead of time, you are not at all incentivized to pick that route at all, which frankly is a very fundamental issue with this game. I am freely willing to admit
And it
that.
also just like is straight up a plot hole when you get into the mind control shtick. Like, why doesn't Atlas just make you do the one thing the whole time? Because
I
they thought this would be cool and they didn't realize
because it's
that they
again
were
it
riding themselves into a hole.
they wanted it to be about player choice, but they didn't really account for the fact that player choice is also in the game and commented on in a very different way, and these two ways do not always coalesce. And
I frankly, a game that does this much better, that takes the idea of stripping back player agency much better, I think is Spec Ops, which
yes,
cliche to say at this point,
yes,
but
yes.
Spec Ops does a much better job at getting what it's trying to say about the idea of video games and player agency across by how its mechanics reinforce its narrative. Whereas in this case, the mechanics in this game occasionally actively go against what the story is trying to do because they had a cool mechanical idea that ended up going against some of their thematic ones.
I understand it on a base level of just like you don't know in the moment you make these choices that you will be copiously rewarded later. But it is just kind of one of those things where it's like if you replay the game, it's like you have to do it the one way. And also when you have these two different routes, you have multiple endings. And I'm sorry, but the bad ending of BioShock that you have to make the more difficult choice to make is a categorically worse ending than the good ending that you are wholly incentivized to take. Like the fact that this game
I
has
got the
multiple
bad
endings
ending
is
because just
nuts.
I got the bad ending because just for the hell of it, I was like, yeah, I'll harvest one of these things because I mean, I hadn't played the game before.
You may as well.
I didn't know if what they were saying about like, yeah, you're gonna need all that atom. I
Mhm.
didn't know how much the game was willing to commit to that. So I was like, you know what? I think I better do it.
Interesting
Uh,
choice. That's
so
an
I
interesting choice.
harvested like maybe two of the little sisters throughout the whole game. And if you harvest even a single one of them, you get the bad ending, which is like just cinematically inert. Like I really
No.
thought I was being pranked when it
No.
just all of a sudden cuts back to the title screen of the game. I was like, wait a second, that's it?
It's
That's it?
And it also like just it's so strange because like it's obviously commenting on player choice. And I know what it's trying to say, and I agree with what it's trying to say. It just says it very poorly. But there is another way in which the game comments on player agency and player choice that I think is infinitely smarter and has nothing to do with this mechanic at all, which is like it makes you feel weird.
It's
At the
just
end of
what
the
they're saying about it's just what they're saying about the would you kindly and connecting it to the idea of like
yeah,
completing objectives. It's a
yes.
completely different mechanism by which they arrive at the conclusions that they're trying to make about player agency. And it works much better when talking about like, you've been doing the thing that we've told you to do the whole time. So we can pull this kind of narrative shorthand out. But again, the thing with the little sisters just completely goes against all of that.
And
But you know what, Jake? I had a really interesting time with this, which is that I became more fond of this game's narrative limitations as a sign of what was to come after it than
yeah.
I was ever frustrated by it. Because to
Mhm.
me,
I agree.
the ultimate takeaway from playing BioShock in 2026 was the foundation that it laid for games to become even more challenging narratively and even more abrasive mechanically.
Yep.
Because I ultimately think that BioShock's narrative compromises stem a little bit from cowardice and being a little too mean to the player and making the game a little bit too difficult to finish.
Yes.
Whereas like you play games now like Pathologic that absolutely do not care if you get stuck in a state where you
Don't give a
cannot finish the game.
fuck.
You just have to start over. And I would even say the same thing about like Baldur's Gate 3. Like eventually you just
Yeah.
have to roll your save file back if you mess things up enough. And
Mhm.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
But BioShock did not ever want to make a player arrive at that point, I don't think, where a player has to realize that, like, oh, their build wasn't correct from the beginning. Like, I need upgrades. I need these things that I don't have time to go back and get. So I got to run back the game even further. Da 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 da. I think this game was way more focused on the big narrative beats, especially in its second act, that they were scared of losing a player and getting too deep in making mechanical mistakes that would have been impossible to avoid if you didn't know what you were doing. Because, yeah, if you take the safe route, you're never actually going to be worried about whether or not you're going to be able to get enough upgrades to fight the final boss, because you do. Like, there's no way to mess up your build in this
No.
game.
No, no, goodness, no. It's very straightforward in that respect, and you could argue it's to its detriment. But I was so, like I picked up on a lot more kind of narrative and logical sort of like inconsistencies in how the game employed its narrative, revisiting it. But the thing is that I kind of agree with you in that like I was made more aware of how it kind of stumbles in its big picture way. And then it also reminded me that these are not the reasons that I love this game like at all. Like it was cool to like think about at the time, and it was interesting because it made me think about games in a way that I'd never thought about them before because obviously it's the I mean, really it's the just following orders thing and then you start to actually think about it and it's like there's something here. But the thing is that like I like that's neat. I like that. I'm not saying that it's not important, but I like the story of the game to me is figuring out what happened to Rapture, trying to find the audio logs of all of the characters and seeing the thought process of characters like Suchong, for instance, who is this like scientist who is making all of these technological developments in the middle of Rapture, and seeing how like these characters who start off as these incredibly like you see Rapture and it's like this utopic vision. Like you can understand why it was alluring to people, but you're also like, oh, it's completely besought with all these insane people, and now there's these like factions that are basically vying for power down there in this struggle, and it's like everyone is like this unbelievably evil or crazy person, but you're like, you get enough pieces to understand that all of these people were more or less very well intentioned and did have noble goals, and everything in Rapture did start out well. But hey, unchecked capitalism is a really, really bad thing. I didn't know if you knew this or not. And then eventually it led to this instability, this collapse. So you end
Even
up learning.
the world building of the game and the way so many of its narrative ideas are communicated to you, frankly, also is where I can identify some of the game's elementary brazenness. Like there's one of the tapes that's like Lorax level, why would I give people air for free ass
Yep.
dialogue? But
It's
I'm just like, you know what? I kind of respect at the time how stupid people thought that we would be about about this
well,
game's
and
ideas.
I mean, and frankly, I mean, fucking open the news and you read the people who are in charge of the world, and they say the same things that the characters in this game who are purposefully exaggerated say. And it's like, okay, maybe Ken Levine made one or two good points that actually do hold up, but not in the way he thought that they would. That said, I do think that the elevated and kind of, well, frankly, silly tone of the game works. Like the moment it really kind of crystallized for me playing this is that I got this audio log of Andrew Ryan basically talking about how like, I've been seeing people around Rapture breaking and hacking into the various machines that dispense our resources. Know that I will pursue you with maximum consequence to say that there are no parasites in Rapture. Blah 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 blah. Like talking about how necessary capitalism is in this environment and how you have to pay your way, and don't cheat me out of my fucking money, you little shithead. And I'm walking through this level, and this is completely like not an intentional thing that happened, but the moment the audio log stopped, there's this little jazz song playing in the background. It's going, "The best things in life are free." And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that's really good. I really like this because the game, through specifically the characters and bosses that you encounter throughout the areas, really lays into the exaggerated sort of state that everyone is in. Like you find the plastic surgeon who's going around and like, basically is, doing all of these things for people, like giving them prosthesis and, like giving them plastic surgery and all of that. And basically, he goes the Drakari route and becomes so obsessed with his work as art that he is just like, I want to look at the human face like Picasso looked at the human face. And then he started butchering people violently and making them look like freaks. And so you encounter him, and he's got this splicer on the table, and he's just like, wrong, wrong, and just keeps like stabbing over and over again. And the way it presents that with like the flashing light, like this game's presentation of its moments and beats is so
I
fucking
love
good.
this game's cinematography.
Oh,
It really keeps you in that first person perspective. So
mm-hmm.
honestly, the thing that it evokes the most for me are like very recent theme park rides that have all those
Yes,
big screens that you watch of like things
yes,
happen in the narrative that inform the mechanical context of the roller coaster, things like that. That's what I got the most out of in like the scene where you're watching from behind a window as the submarine that Atlas's family is supposedly on
explodes.
explodes. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And you get all this like sad music playing and you're hearing Atlas talking to you, but you're free to go and move toward the next objective. So it has this very like immersive production design to the way that you as Jack move through the space that makes it feel less like an attempted a big blockbuster in a way that, say, a game like Watch Dogs 2, which I love, would be. But that game has so many cutscenes that are just like normal scenes that would happen in a movie or a TV show where characters sit around in a room and talk about a plan, and then you go do the level. But this is like, no, you're fully immersed in Jack and the movement of time forward from the moment that you start one of these levels to the moment where you get in the bathysphere to load up the next one. And
Yep.
it's really, really interesting.
I really love just how the game consistently tells you stories with its environment without saying anything at all. Like you have the audio logs and they do inform a lot of the world building and everything. And, the voice acting is very comically exaggerated and what have you. But there is something to just the way it's all stylized and the way everything is kind of that old-timey aesthetic. And you can just walk into random rooms and you can be like, with the way that like glass shatters here and the way with like this thing is knocked over, I can tell that like this character came in and then was killed here. Or like when you get off the elevator after you get that initial speech from Atlas and you see this splicer like over this little like baby crib and she's like talking like baby talk to this thing and like putting thing and then you kill her because she's going to murder you with a knife and then you look into the baby carriage and it's a revolver and you're like, oh, and it's like it's so good at building these tiny little moments of discovery that let you see just how far gone and just how ruinous this all has become. This game's the thing is that it's Luigi's Mansion. What I said about that, it's the atmosphere of BioShock that makes it for me. Is that I just love being here and going around and seeing this weird theme park derelict thing and then finding these whack jobs and what they have to say. Like there are a number of characters in this game. Like specifically, my favorite moments narratively in this almost have nothing to do with Atlas. My favorite moment in the game narratively is the boss Sander Cohen, who is
Yeah, I
this
love Sander Cohen.
fucking exploding piano. Like that is the funniest fucking thing that I think is in like any like game in this series is just you find this dude and then like the fucking he's got this guy strapped to this piano and then you get closer to it and it just fucking blows up. It's great. And he's this guy who's like he's like the plastic surgeon. He takes his artistic sensibility so far that he has essentially made he's incorporating the environment and like sculptures into the human body and making the human body into like he is obsessed with sculpting people essentially and just the idea of art and how far you can feasibly take it. And he's this like flamboyant and very eccentric character and you just kind of like hearing him. And then as like he actually has a pretty decently interesting boss fight. But like as you keep going through the game, it also does a fantastic job of just like making you feel like you're getting stronger, not just because of the power-ups that allow you to interact with your environment in different ways, but the different weapons that you acquire as well, which are increasingly like useful. Like BioShock to me is an expert first-person shooter slash survival horror slash whatever the fuck you actually want to call this, because I there's no tool that this game gives me that I'm not constantly using. Like I will like because I
I
played it
found
on
that as
higher.
well in my gameplay. Like I found myself switching my plasmids a whole
Yep.
lot. I found myself switching my like preferred primary weapon as I went through
Hmm.
the game a whole lot. Like the resources that the game gives you are always you're always improving, but you're never going to be solely relying on one thing that you ever
No.
get. So you're always going to have to be flexible with how you're engaging with enemies. And I really liked that.
Yes.
The physics and the visuals of some of the gunplay leave a little bit to be desired.
Oh yeah. It's a 20-year-old
I
game,
feel
all
like
right.
yeah, I feel like I'm pointing a mouse more than I'm aiming a gun
Like
most of the time.
part of
But I
that is
like the
because
visuals of the powers more than the gunplay.
why does this game require you to push in the right stick in order to aim down the sights? I didn't like that when I first played this game, and I don't like it now,
I
frankly.
didn't
Like
do it a single time just because I was
I
playing on keyboard and mouse.
see, that's the thing. I've always played this with a controller, and instead of holding the right trigger button, you have to press the right stick, and it goes click, and it's like, Why? And it also won't let me rebind my keys on console. So like, what the fuck is this? Small thing, all things considered, but like, it is a game that is definitely emblematic of its time. But that being said, all of this really does build to a moment. And Jen, let's. A man chooses, a slave obeys. Let's talk about Andrew Ryan for a second and the end of this game, because this is one of the moments in the medium
Yeah, I
of
mean,
gaming that like
I think
people will tell you
the
about.
most disappointing thing for me about this game was actually that it was not the ending because I found everything after that scene with Andrew Ryan a little bit lacking, especially the
The
boss fight
game
at the end.
should have ended there. It should have ended there. I'm
But
just
this is again where
saying.
it's like it's elementary brazenness and it's want to be a crowd pleaser
Hmm.
where it's like, well, we can't have the player, get betrayed and die at the end. So they gotta like come back and beat the guy. And I'm like, you really don't.
Well,
But you
and
really don't.
also like even though like the fact I do think the game should end there for the record, but it also is compounded by the fact that the area you have to go through after you kill Andrew Ryan in this game is far and away the most frustrating part of the game from a gameplay perspective because
Ugh.
it really does just feel like the game ratchets up like the actual difficulty setting instead of making a difficult challenge. Like it becomes like, all right, we really got to push through this now. Like it's a crawl to get to the actual place you want to be. And because the ending is such a big moment and because the, would you kindly moment is such a big moment that everything in between these is just like, I mean, okay, I guess, but like the moment where you confront Andrew Ryan in his fucking office and you discover that your guide this entire time has been lying to you and has actually been Frank Fontaine doing a silly little voice and manipulating you by using a key phrase that's would you kindly, that whenever he says that, you are immediately compelled to do exactly as he tells you because you are not an actual person. You are a construct that was made not entirely dissimilar to things like the Little Sisters, and you're a blank slate. All of your memories and all of that stuff with like the photograph and the plane, it's all implanted. It's not real. It was taken from somebody else. You, Jack, is not a human being. You are a vessel for the will of someone else, which again,
You are
interesting commentary on game
to
agency.
get into the Jewishness of this game. Shout out to Jacob Geller.
Oh
You're a
yeah.
golem. You're a
Yeah.
golem being
Hmm.
used for evil purposes.
Yep. And Andrew Ryan, I mean, like everything's falling down around him. And so he says, would you kindly, and there, well, I mean, Andrew Ryan doesn't, but he goes, would you kindly kill the son of a bitch? And then golf club, bop, 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 bop. And I mean, like, that's such, like, that. I mean, I'll just say, like, regardless of how well this moment is executed or not executed in the context of the game overall,
When
this
it's
changed the way
happening,
I thought about art. This
I
changed the way
mean,
I thought about games.
and when it's happening, it's still peak form. Like
Oh God, yeah.
I was so happy that throughout the entire second act of this game, I was like, I know what's coming, but I can't wait to see it because it's building up to it so.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's a hell of a moment, and like it's kind of notorious that after this, Bioshock does kind of like a little bit with its final level design. It's not awful. I wouldn't call it unpleasant, but it is a notable step down that feels like the level design exists for you to beat it rather than for it to tell a story like the rest of the game so expertly does. Like I just don't like existing within that final stretch as I do the first part of it. And then naturally also the final boss in this game, lame as hell. Super easy. You can beat this fucking
So
blindfolded,
bad.
dude. It's so. It's also just like, it's
It's
such a,
so goofy. Like,
it's dumb.
why is
Like, it's
that the
a
move?
dumb thing. Like, like, it's just like, oh, he's
They
a
do the
big,
same thing at the end of
scary guy.
they do the same thing at the end of one of the Arkham games where it's like, well, now we
Yeah,
need a
the
boss
Joker.
fight. So
It's the
Joker's going
same
to turn
thing.
into a big monster man.
And it's not
But
a fun
and
challenge. It's not a fun way to use the game mechanics. You're just shooting, you know?
yeah, and this is where I say like, but at the end of the day, honestly, I got nostalgic for the limitations of this game because
I did too.
this game reminded me of a time when games were trying to kiss the ass of mainstream attention a little bit, and we're trying to get people that not just like aren't good at games, but don't know how to play games like
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
Because like I was talking to this and one of my best friends, I just brought up randomly that was playing Bioshock for the show, and one of my best friends who does not play video games was just like, yeah, I played Bioshock during the pandemic and I loved it. And my kids dressed up as little sisters for Halloween. I love that game so
that's
much.
awesome.
And
It's
I
like
was just
there's
like, holy shit, but that's the power of this game as like a four quadrant cultural object that goes beyond any of my like nuanced super gamer opinions on its execution.
yeah,
Like, it's a game that gets people that don't like games invested in what a game is. And that's
yeah.
really admirable. And even in its failures, it reinforces the idea that a layman will understand what the game is doing, even if it's not as effective as it could be by maybe doing something else.
Honestly, when I take a look at my list of favorite games, which I still consider BioShock to be one of my absolute favorite games of all time, warts and all, just because its strengths, like my philosophy on art is essentially it doesn't really matter how many problems something has if the good things about something wholly eclipse them. And to me, BioShock is a perfect example of a very flawed game where all of its flaws don't really end up mattering all that much. It's something that I can come back to and realize, it's not quite the innovative statement or the groundbreaking statement that maybe a lot of us, and myself included, thought that it was. But its foundational strengths are so solid that it's just like, yeah, I mean, like, you could fix all those problems, but I don't necessarily think that makes it a that much better video game. Like, the things about it that are great are the environment. They're about rapture. They're about the style. They're about actually playing the goddamn game, exploring the environment, seeing the different biomes within rapture. It's such an enriching world and a fun experience that, yes, all of these little writing things, they don't really end up amounting to a big, like, I would not give this a perfect score these days just because I couldn't in good conscience. It's got too many problems, but I still consider it a favorite because all of its strengths are things that appeal to me, and it did vastly widen my horizons. Like, if I did not play BioShock first, I would not have been as receptive to the work of Hideo Kojima as I ended up being. Like, I played BioShock and then immediately went to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. And if we want to talk about a game that's actually innovative when it comes to what it's saying about narrative agency and the people playing the game, boy howdy does Metal Gear Solid 2 have a lot to say about that, and says it quite well. But that's how you get there. We talk about this a lot, the idea of gateway art, of stuff that you have to
Yeah.
listen to ingratiate you in that, like, yes, it has more limitations than maybe some bona fide like masterpieces and all, but you need these games to hook people because, again, you're not going to play Pathologic if you've never played a video game before. You're going to play that for 10 minutes and then just be like, fuck this isn't fun. You have to be able to engage with something that pushes at the limitations without necessarily breaking anything and making the experience like less inherently fun or worthy of investment. You got to have something that meets you in the middle a little bit, and I think that BioShock does. It's one of my favorites. It's probably not as high on my favorites list as it used to be, perhaps, but I was delighted that I did not, my love for the things about this game that I love did not diminish because I was a little tiny worried that it would because it's been so long.
I was very pleased with my experience with this game. And to give a definitive statement about my takeaway from it, BioShock is a game that I will cherish, but that I'm glad that we've grown past a teeny tiny bit.
Yes.
Of like, I
We
like that
learned lessons
BioShock
from
is,
BioShock.
it's good that BioShock is not the standard anymore, but we learned lessons from it that are good lessons. And the game is still worth going back to and having a lot of fun with because I did.
100%. That's, I
So,
mean, that we don't get Slay the Princess without first getting to BioShock. Like,
exactly.
that's how it is. And, you know, so I
So
mean,
Warts and all, this gets a 4 from me, a very strong 4 out of 5. I really, really enjoyed this experience.
Ideal outcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad I enjoyed it again too. So yeah, that was nice. So
We have one
you,
last thing we need to
you
talk
know,
about.
I just think it's really funny that the week you recommend this to me is when the commander in chief of the United States of America visited our state and endorsed one of the Paul brothers for office. And it felt like what's the opposite of divine providence? Because whatever that is, that's how
Um,
this feels.
who is it? Who is it?
Satan,
No,
Baal,
not Carmilla. It's an old Greek thing about the lady that's right about everything, but nobody realizes until it's too late.
Helen? No, not
Um,
Helen.
God damn it.
Oh, I feel like I should know this.
Why
Well,
can't I
there's also
remember?
who's the character from King Lear? The sister
Whatever.
who sees the future,
Anyway,
but she can't, but nobody believes her. Shit, it's somebody in King Lear. That's all I remember. Okay, so we're talking about the thinning and the thinning New World Order.
the
And
thinning.
I was wondering, like, before I watched these movies, I was like, okay. I get that Jen is recommending them to me because they're bad. That's the point of the show. I understand this. But specifically, why? And after finishing them, I know that there's certainly a greater point to be made about maybe the context in which they were released and like the YouTube movie kind of space that existed in a liminal state for a little while. But upon finishing them, I think my first thought was, you know, I think I know why you picked these. Because they're slam fucking dunks. Like, there was no shot. There was no chance in this
I did not
universe.
envision
There,
myself missing with this pick in any
no, there's
reality.
there is no way I could feasibly be like that I could pull a reverse, that I could do a third Uno reverse in a row here and be like, no, I actually thought the Walker Hayes album was okay, and then moving to I actually thought My Soul to Take was okay. And like, even if this was true, I'm freely admitting if I liked either of these movies, I'd be sitting here lying to you about liking them because like this is why.
So let's get
Just
into
go
it.
for it. Like explain it because I oh my God.
So let me take you back. It's 2016. Stranger Things is out. Streaming services are in. YouTube wants a piece of the pie,
Oh yeah.
and Logan Paul wants to be a movie star. These two interests collide in a film project called The Thinning, which is basically YouTube's attempt at an asylum version of Divergent.
Yes. Yep,
Because
yep, 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 yep.
so much of the visual aesthetic of this movie, the brutalist architecture, the emphasis on school, and the age of the protagonists, it all screams Divergent. And those
Oh
movies
yeah.
were just coming out. The second one came out the same year that this did. And so Logan Paul wanted to make his own Divergent. But what this movie is about is the thinning in the near future due to overpopulation. The United Nations comes together and says that every country has to find some kind of way to annually not just like lower the birth rate, but lower the number of people so that we can start making this problem go away. Annually cut their populations by 5% is the figure that they use.
Yes.
And they explicitly say that every country does this in like a different way. And the United States is the only one that implements this thing called the thinning, which is a standardized test, an aptitude test that if you fail, you are executed on the spot.
And can I just say that I had to rein myself in to prevent myself from laughing so hard that I passed out when they said, if you fail the aptitude test, you die. Can I just be the person to insert here that you don't fail aptitude tests because they measure aptitude? They don't have fail states.
And this is where we get into here's my thing. Here's the biggest brain thing that I'm going to say about this movie, and then we're going to talk about how much it sucks on every like normal level. I'm a teacher. I've designed grading systems before. I know what it's like to think about curriculum as a piece of technology.
Hmm.
The fact that this movie is so uninterested in the actual test is unbelievably frustrating as a viewer because throughout the whole movie, this is literally the most important thing in the plot
Oh,
is this
yes.
test. These characters are always talking about this test. They're helping their siblings study for it. They're studying for it. They're attempting to cheat at it, right? That's what the whole first act of the movie is about, is how all these different characters are approaching the day of the thinning and the day of the test. Do you want to guess how much of the test we actually see in the movie?
Like maybe two shots,
You
maybe?
get two stills of it. You get quadratic equations, which is the only thing that the only like actual question on the test that you see are math formulas. And you see one little slide for a single frame that has a still of like the parts of the test. And it's math, science, language, and like it's not composition, it's something like comprehension. It's
Comprehension?
comprehension. That's what
Yeah.
it says. Yeah. Language and comprehension. This is a movie about getting a score so bad on the ACTs that they take you out back like Old Yeller.
I would read my review. Everyone, please. Rhiannon's
Come
review
on, Rhiannon,
Rhiannon's review
say
for
it.
the second Thinning movie is I failed the ACT and now I'm a slave in the Amazon prison industrial complex. It's it's the truth. It's just what like I have
The
so
thing
many
about
issues.
dystopian fiction is that dystopian fictions are often invested in the mechanisms that their world operate within. Like the Divergent movies and the Divergent books, as dumb as the concept is, are obsessed with explaining how the five different factions of the
Yes.
different parts of the brain came to be. And like there you could write whole wikis on like the biographies of the people that founded the different like tribes in the Divergent books
There's world building in it.
because the author actually enjoyed thinking about these things. Same with like the Hunger Games. Same with like what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Uglies. Same with the
Yeah, yeah,
Uglies. Like I at
yeah.
least know how the Uglies got to where it is. But like I just want to know so bad. I want this movie to be invested in who came up with this test and why it is the way it is, but it just isn't because this is not a movie about being in a dystopia. This is a movie about overcoming the dystopia. And so it's not interested in what's actually subjugating anybody. It's just interested in the efforts of its characters to overcome them. But what ultimately ends up happening is that your characters get bogged down because without understanding the ideology that drives the world that the characters take place in, it feels like these characters don't have ideology at all. Or
No.
it doesn't feel like there's anything that can meaningfully be resisted or that there is anything to resist. It's
These
so strange to me how the idea that overcoming this test seems to be like an afterthought for the plot of the movie.
Oh yeah, it is treated as kind of a foregone conclusion of just like, oh, a character either passed or failed, and then the movie is them dealing with whatever repercussions come afterwards. And I'm like, you have kind of immediately skipped to the least interesting way you could tackle this concept in the first place, just because obviously there is no way to engage with the mechanics of this because everything is too vague. But it is also two movies that are overtly very political but have no politics. It's very, very strange, especially in the second movie where they fucking color code the political parties for fuck's sake. In the blue guys are the good ones, and the guys who wear red are the Texans who want to institute the thinning. And like these movies are so frustrating to me because on some level they do enact these specific like subversions and things that are built into their concept where it's like, I mean, like I guess conceptually that works, but it makes the movie worse. Like what I mean by that is that there's this the I'm just gonna skip directly to the twist of the thinning because you can't really talk about this movie without talking about the ending
Yeah.
because what happens at the end is essentially most telegraphed twist of all time that the kids who are killed in the thinning are not killed. They are essentially drugged and taken to a other third site where they become Amazon slaves to build people's phones. They become factory workers and day laborers and stuff, and they end up being like these corporate, like basically they use the thinning as psychological intimidation in order for the kids to be like, oh, they didn't kill me, so I guess that building things is actually pretty good in
Yeah.
the grand scheme
There's
of
a
things.
there's a great moment at the at I, like here's the thing. There's a phrase that one of the characters uses at one point in the first movie, closet smart, to describe another character. And there were parts of me that would venture to say that these movies are almost closet smart. But what I think is
Yeah,
really
I get what you
happening
mean. I totally get
is
what
that
you
they're
mean.
so dumb and so undercooked that they're just accidentally horrifying because they don't
Yes.
realize what they're saying.
Well, that's the thing. My review for the first movie is this, in that I said this is a movie that is about what if a bunch of horrible things that were already happening in real life were happening? Because like when you break
It's got
down.
the Handmaid's Tale effect of just like if you take out the white people and just make it all black people, it's not science fiction anymore.
Yeah, it's like,
Like
no, this actually just happens. It's like people who fail standardized tests in schools, who the education system fails, do get shipped off to the Amazon warehouses where they have to live, essentially, and piss into bottles in order to make minimum wage or a little bit more than minimum wage or just not enough for, basically, these are things that happen. And not to mention, there's like every piece of it, like, here's the thing. They distinguish that the thinning is something that the United States does, even though this is weirdly kind of inconsistent. It kind of implies in the sequel that it's like localized to specific states, but then
yeah,
doesn't
it's
specify
really
which
weird.
ones. Like it's apparently like Texas is apparently like the big one where it all happens, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess it would happen there. Because I mean, like the Logan Paul's dad, who is like the antagonist of the movies, kind of sort of is basically just actually Governor Greg Abbott, and like the movies think they're doing something with like all of these things, and it's like, do I believe that in a hypothetical scenario in which overpopulation was used as an excuse for the United Nations to start trying to curb their own populations. Do I believe that the United States government would be stupid and cruel enough to implement a policy like this, even though other countries have done way more humane ways of doing it? Yes, of course I do. I live in America. I know what it's like. I know what the healthcare system is like. This is exactly what's happening right now. But when you put this into a movie that is supposed to make dramatic and coherent sense, this being more realistic makes it a worse story. Because I I I know this is going to sound naive of me. I know that it is, but I need you to follow me here. I think these movies are legitimately too cruel to take seriously. Like when we get to
I agree.
the end of
When
the first movie ends with these kids in a gas chamber. And no, they don't die, but the movie uses this imagery for a disconcerting amount of time where you're like, how how much longer are we gonna have to keep watching this? And like they lean into some imagery, both of these movies, that's like, is this how Michelle Haneke felt when he saw Schindler's List? Because I feel like this is how he felt, or like actually, you know what it made me feel like? It made me feel like when I watched Life is Beautiful for the first time, and I was like, I fucking hate this. But at least I got what Benini was going for with that. This, on the other hand, is just complete incoherency. Like the degree to which these ideas are taken is so beyond the pale. Like the point of these problems in real life is that they're so banal that we've come to accept them. The people in the Thinning movies are so outlandishly evil, even by my standards, as somebody who's very aware of our world leaders and how fucking stupid they all are. Everyone here is so much more cruel than they are stupid, where it's like, oh, other countries, they're limiting the amount of children you can have. And this is something where it's just like, oh, you curb 5% of the population through these standardized tests. And because they don't say how widespread or how they don't actually give you like the details on how big this phenomenon is, you start having to think about this in the way that it's presented to you with this cold kind of clinical logic. And I'm like, okay, so what you're actually telling me is that you would only have to do this for like 1 year because you have effectively like eliminated a sect of the population that would also reproduce. And so we have just like every year this is instituted, we are shaving more and more off the population. And then you're like, this doesn't make any sense at all, logistically speaking. Like it that like we would only have to do this for like 2 years,
That's the thing
if
is
at
that
all.
I love that we're like really overthinking the political feasibility of the
Yes,
thinning.
and
But the thing is that the movie emphasizes it so
so
much that
much.
you just kind of can't help but start to think about the logistics of it because characters spent, but that's the thing too, is that it doesn't matter because it's not what the movie is really
No,
about. It's
but
just
it
a
still
fucking
spends so much time talking about it as though it were. It is pondering the ethical implications of something that doesn't happen in the movie, so it's pointless to talk about. Like, what? What do you mean? Like,
because they go through there's two twists, right? Because there's the twist that one, they're all getting shipped off to the Amazon labor
yeah,
camps,
yeah,
but
yeah.
before that we get the idea that the thinning is being rigged by political
Preordained.
agents. Yeah, the scores are basically being manipulated in order for people to get rid of like young political opponents for some reason. There's
Listen, and here's the thing, like, not that the movie would ever be brave enough to go there, but do you know how fucking easy it would be to make a salient point with this plot element to just be like, the tests are specifically preordained, and these systems that are instituting the thinning are actually disproportionately killing minority children so that white children instead,
you
because
can make
that's
this
what
so
happens in real life. They just don't do it with standardized testing. They do it with things like immigration policies. This is real life. This is real life, and it actually happens. But no, we can't do that. We have to do it because, like, oh, they
it
just don't
has to
like these
be.
political upstarts that we have
Yeah,
to
it has
send
to
to
be
the
about
gas chamber.
conspiring against the main characters and not just. We're gonna sound like insane people,
Yep.
but the thinning is not about just like ridding the world of undesirables. Like
No.
it apparently is just working as intended and doing the thing it was designed to do, which is not what would actually happen in real life until it isn't, right? They did not build a school to prison pipeline accidentally on purpose. They built an algorithm and used it as intended until they decided not to go after two white children.
And which, again, it's like if you're going this far, you need to make points that are worth the weight that you're placing on this, which I think that would be earned in this case. But there's so many questions that you have to end up asking yourself along
They
the
never
train of
explain why Logan Paul's test scores are manipulated. Like,
no,
who
they
did
don't.
that? Who did that? It wasn't his dad because his dad believes that he's dead.
Everyone is acting as though some like third party interfered with it somehow, but we never find out what, how, or why. And you keep having to ask yourself these questions with these tiny little logical fallacies. Like, for instance, why are these tests being administered annually? Second, why are these tests being administered to people who don't have fully developed brains, you fucking idiots?
Yeah,
Like,
they're doing it at like every grade, it seems.
yes, they're like doing it to that was the point at which I was just like I completely gave up is when we have to see like this fucking homely little preschool teacher or whatever walk into this
Oh my
classroom and she
God.
sends like 5-year-olds to go get to be gassed. At least you
I'm
think
gonna
that's
can I
what's
tell
about
you
to
I'm gonna tell
happen.
you a funny story. I'm gonna tell you a funny story. I
Please.
um I watched this movie legally, as one does.
I unfortunately did pay for it for ease of access.
And the version of it that I was watching must have gotten copyright struck by the YouTube bots because instead of My Country 'Tis of Thee, during that scene, just like lo-fi trap beats started playing. That the person that uploaded the movie had just like gone back in and put in like a stock song. And I started losing my goddamn mind because I had no reason to believe that that wasn't what was intended. And it was only until I found a different legal version of the movie that that I got
That's
to see the preschool teacher not actually saying the names of the children that are about to be killed while My Country 'Tis of
well,
Thee is playing over it.
we
It's
also
insane.
We also don't know what happens to the smaller children because when they elaborate on who is sent to the Amazon prison labor camps,
Yeah, we
it's
don't see any
all teenagers.
five-year-olds in the Amazon prison camp.
So like, do they kill the smaller children? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I would believe it because everyone in this is a cartoon character. I joked about in my review saying that Laura Harring, yes, Mulholland Drive's Laura Harring is in both of these movies, and she essentially plays female Stephen Miller. She's this fucking like immigration policy fucking, but like with the thinning thing, and these guys are just like the way that the politicians talk in this movie, talking about like, just being like, stupid kids who don't study deserve to be left behind and murdered. Like it is the most like this movie needs to have the tone of like a Verhoeven movie. Like it needs to have something to both offset its oppressively bleak themes, but also it needs to like have some self-awareness about itself in order to make it make more sense. But instead, it's just this relentlessly, oppressively bleak prospect that, and what's fucking crazy is that we're talking about this whole time. This still accounts for maybe, I don't know, 25 minutes of this movie that is largely an hour of Logan Paul running around hallways. That is most of this film is that
That's
he is
most of the second
sneaking,
movie, definitely. There's a bit more going on in the first movie, but yeah. By the time we get to, okay, so let's talk about New World Order.
which
Jesus Christ.
New World Order is dangerously close to being more of a movie than the first one, and then abruptly does not have an ending because the film simply stops.
So, New World Order is all about, okay, now that Logan Paul is in the prison camp, the whole movie's going to be about him breaking out of the prison camp and about
And about how
Peyton List,
everyone wants to kiss him.
about
Everybody wants to
Peyton
kiss Logan Paul.
List on the outside trying to get him out. He finds his old girlfriend who he thought was killed during last year's test, which is how the first movie starts,
Such
which
a touching
funnily
reunion.
hilariously, the second movie completely like retcons the way that he discovers this. It's like the part in The Return where they pull up a picture of Cooper and it's clearly just like a still from one of the scenes where he's in the White Lodge. And it's just like, how, who? They have a picture of him in the White Lodge, but that beat only lasts for like 3 seconds, and so you just kind of have to forget about it. A moment like that happens in this, where at the end of the first movie, we see Logan Paul see his not dead girlfriend face to face and be like, "Hey, it's you." And that's how the movie ends. The second movie starts with him seeing a still of her from the last movie that's been edited to look like security camera footage on
Oh,
a
one of my favorite
monitor.
things in the world.
They just completely continuity error the whole ending of the first movie. The very last shot of it, even.
And the second movie, like the first movie is clearly trying to do Divergent. The second movie is clearly trying to do Catching Fire, where our main character has to be this agent who's working from within in order to dismantle the government on behalf of the opposition, who also might be kind of bad, sort of, kind of. And like, there's this scene that I loved where they are practicing for the presidential debate. And because they're
I hear
trying
Rhiannon laughing and I love it so
because
much.
they literally say they say you have to get used to debating a woman. And that's how we have our main character, played by Peyton List in the last movie, theoretically debate the president because he has to get used to debating his opposition, which is played by someone who looks exactly like the governor of New York right now, Kathy Hochul, but I'm guessing that's a coincidence. But she goes and has this thing where it's like, because she has experienced the thinning, she's basically acting as a false mouthpiece for the administration. Like, basically, this girl is Riley Gaines in that she is being used as a political, like, piece of political theater in order to push a bunch of propaganda because she made it through the thinning. But she's like, oh, but it's fine. Like, I don't like it. The thinning is still good. It, like, she's trying to assure them that the system still works. And then she does this thing where it's like, oh, but because she's actually really against the thinning, she's able to effectively argue against the president. But do they know that she's like doing this thing with her loyalty? And do you know what my first fucking thought was? It's just like, this is like, obviously this was first, but it's like, this is trying to do the thing that James Gunn's Superman did when it has the proxy argument between the two characters, where it's just like, what
Well,
are they
yeah, that's
authentically
obviously
held?
what it's doing. It's a
Yeah.
scene from God's Not Dead, dude, where the
Oh,
woman is talking about cancer. It's that.
oh
It's
my God, these
exactly
movies
that.
do have a very God's Not Dead quality to a lot of their like preachiness. But that's the thing, is that I knew what God's Not Dead was preaching. I don't know what these movies are saying because they don't engage with anything. It's just plot. It's just plot, 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 plot. And you just you become completely desensitized to the idea that any of the world building actually is supposed to mean or have any greater implications. Like, there's so many things that happen in this fucking movie that just absolutely took me out. Like the fucking piece of audio that is revealed on the day of the election, that the opposition, that the governor of like this blue state, this Democrat obviously is being coded this way, and the audio leaks of her being like, everyone in this country is a fucking moron from New York to California. And I'm like, there is not a single universe fathomable in which a Democratic candidate would insult California. Are you fucking kidding me? You sincerely think, like, even if this character thought that, you think that a politician would actually be dumb enough to say everyone in these swing states is stupid? Dude, they're dumb and malicious, but not like this. Oh my God. Come
Oh my
on,
God.
man.
So,
Also, Charles
shout
Melton
out to
is in this
Charles
movie.
Melton,
Charles
who
Melton shows up, who I
is
would
in this
just like to
movie
point.
as the leader of a prison gang who's just completely brainwashed by Amazon.
Yep, they are the peacekeepers from the Hunger Games movie, or no, they're the careers actually, which is the people that get to be the above class of everyone in the the Amazon warehouses. They get to have special privileges. They get to beat the fuck out of people. They get to do all these things, and basically the guards don't even bother them. They get to they have all these things, and they're strong and whatever. But like, it's so funny how everyone who isn't Charles Melton is just this skinny little dude who's not remotely intimidating. That Logan Paul looks like he could break in half, like with one hand tied behind his back. But like it, whenever Melton is on screen, it's so funny because you're just like, wow, it's just so obvious that you should be the lead in these movies because you have talent and charisma, and they're just not like using it. He's just kind of showing up to be this kind of like asshole, and I'm like, man, I'm really I'm longing for the days of Riverdale that actually use this guy in a way that's funny and fun, but like, wow, the one thing I haven't even talked about is that I know that this is a pet peeve I espouse a lot with bad movies, but holy fucking shit, are these movies ugly as hell. The first one in
Ugly.
particular is like its color correction is legitimately so bad. There are choices in it that I could not tell were intentional or not. There are scenes in which there is this weirdly bright shade of emphasis, like emphasized to be like this blue color. And I'm like, is this a stylistic choice or did you fuck up the color timing? Because it doesn't, like, nothing else in the movie looks like that. And the color blue doesn't like mean anything. It's not like trying to imply, like, every single shot in it looks like they tried to color correct it differently. Whereas in the second movie, it feels like they put everything into their editing software and then changed the color temperature of all of the scenes all at once so that it had uniformity, but still nothing looked right. Like the camera work in the second is a little better, but as like movies, these are like, you know the scenes in like Mr. Robot where Elliot's wandering around like a room full of servers and is trying to like hack into something, but like Sam Esmail is a very talented formalist who's able to make these montages really, really compelling and interesting and show you like the thought process and the narration and give you details on what's happening and why and what it's going to accomplish. It's literally just, I'm hacking the mainframe. That's every fucking scene. And then there's this fucking kid who's just trying to be Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen in the second movie. And he's like this investigative journalist who a paper hires, even though he's 18. And he's literally trying to he's trying to dismantle this government conspiracy, even though he's like a local news person. And he ends up getting exploded in a car bomb. What? Like they also, oh my God, I completely forgot about this. They try to assassinate him earlier on in the movie by having someone in the back of his car and they put a Ziploc bag on his head. He could have torn it open to be able, and they fail. They still fail at
The
trying to
guy
kill him.
runs away. He gets out of the car
Like,
and runs away.
dude, you live
It's
in a
so
mass
funny.
surveillance state. They would just drone strike this kid out of existence. Why do you need to get a guy with a Ziploc bag to try and strangle him? It's so fucking stupid, man. It's so dumb. And like oh my God, there's this guy. They try to build up this one character as like the heavy. They try to build up this one character
Oh
as this
yes, I
guy who's
like to
in
call him Chris Kyle Ren.
I literally said he looks like aged up Adam Driver to read. Please, I did. I did say this, is that he shows up and he's even trying to do like the Kylo Ren, like, more scream in the second movie. And it's so bad. Like, this guy is not characterized. He's just like, I have scars, so I'm evil. And it's just like, he just walks around and beats people with billy clubs. I don't know why he's supposed to be intimidating when he's just not physically more imposing than Logan Paul is, who is like, again, built like a brick shithouse in this movie, and everyone else looks completely fucking normal. They're all just walking around, and I'm just like, I don't like. I think Logan Paul could probably like. There are several times where these characters are like, "We're busting out of here," and I'm like, "No, you're fucking not. You again. This is a mass surveillance state, and you're trying to break out of a building by like walking down a hallway, and it's just like, are there not cameras? Are there not guards? These guards don't discharge a gun once in these movies, and it's in Texas. It's in Texas. Are you kidding me? Like, you can't tell me that they weren't willing to show the violence or or whatnot, because they show way worse shit in these movies than people being shot with guns. But no, all these guards have is like a billy club. That's all they've got. And
Well,
it's like,
and that's the problem with making this your like big streaming movie is that this was produced by fucking Legendary Pictures, people that make real movies. But of course, YouTube was like, you can't show like these kids being held at gunpoint. I guarantee it. I
oh,
guarantee this was a
for sure.
conversation.
It's the only it's Corpo trying to like being like, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, but we can show kids going to the gas chamber. We can show a bunch of 5-year-olds being sent off to the death march to be gassed. Like where, like why exactly are these lines being drawn? Because I have no question that they are. I would just like to know the reasoning, because it's very funny and always deeply, deeply hypocritical. But man, like the New World Order is like more things kind of happen in it, and it threatens
There's all
on
kinds of like character subplots that threaten to become interesting until you realize that they're just going to do the normal thing that
there that
happens with
they'll
every
either.
character in this. You've got Charles Melton's girlfriend. You've got
Yep.
the Secret Service guy who's secretly a revolutionary fighter. You've got all the political opponents of the dad character who are like somehow connected to the thinning but have greater intentions that are yet to be
Also,
revealed. Da 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 da.
Peyton List has a thing for Logan Paul, even though they literally interacted one time in the first movie and didn't know each other beforehand, and she spends the entire
Ah,
second movie obsessed with him.
there's a whole scene where they're sitting in an elevator talking about how badly they want to fuck, but they need to break out of this camp. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Well,
What do
also,
you
like,
mean?
you're telling me that you have co-ed rooms in these Amazon houses where you're
Yeah.
housing teenagers? Like, really? Because, like, again, if you wanted to do, like, again, if you wanted to go there, you could be like, oh no, we sterilized you. Or, hey, it sure is nice to have some extra bodies we can send to the warehouse. But no, the movie's not gonna go there and
It's not
actually make
interested in
like a.
that. It's just interested in how to get Logan Paul in a room alone with Charles Melton's girlfriend.
Yes, exactly. And oh man, it is dumb idea after dumb idea, and then there's this like it really kind of builds to a fever pitch in the third act of the movie, and like people are escaping, and then Logan Paul takes out the heavy guy, he escapes into the desert. They like the election ends up like he gets revealed to be like a fraud at the last minute because everybody thinks that Logan Paul is dead, but then obviously he turns out not to be, and since he is the guy who won the presidency's son, all of a sudden everybody's like, wait, what the fuck? And then the movie's over. It stopped. It stops.
Yeah, it's like they're gonna start arresting people who are working against the thinning, and then the revolutionaries are going to war, and then the movie ends.
And it doesn't there's not even like a sequel tease or anything like which I would have expected, because it just sounds like a dumb corporate move that they would have done to be like, oh, see what happens next time. But it's like, no, the movie just kind of stopped. It's like, oh, Logan Paul's there, he's looking up the helicopter, I guess the governor's screwed, and Peyton List is over here, and I guess she's
Well,
fine, and it's over.
the FBI guy shows up and is like, "We're going to war," and then walks out of frame, and then the movie ends. Like theoretically, here's the thing about how that ending is shot. It's not shot like the ending of a big movie like this.
No, 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 no.
They could have just like kept the scene going and just like moved on because the movie's only 89 minutes. You could
Yeah.
easily do another 5 minutes of like belabored sequel setup while AWOL Nation plays in the background. Like, do it. Commit to the
AWOL Nation's a
bit.
good pull.
Commit to the bit, but it just ends.
It's it is I am so fascinated at how utterly self-defeating these movies are. They are a thematic feedback loop that is an equation that cancels itself out. Every potentially interesting point that they raise, and it's like, it's also just the fact that they are dystopias that like all of these things happen in real life, by the way. Like they don't happen in the context they happen in the thinning, but these are all things that you can point to a real life parallel, and it's not even like an exaggeration. It's like, no, this is just the reality of the actual for-profit prison industrial complex that we live within. And it's so strange to pull the dystopic thing and not have a creative slant on it and not put something into it. Because it's like with the Hunger Games, sure, it's obviously like there it is rooted in a potential reality and then obviously extrapolates it with a lot of sci-fi and genre tropes and everything. But that's because it evolves the point. It makes it bigger, it makes it more macro. It's like, you know, it comes from the fact that Suzanne Collins sees things like reality television and the political landscape of the 2000s and the Iraq War, and it's just like, boy, it sure does feel like America is a country that loves reviving Roman blood sports. And then is like, what if we took that to its logical conclusion? There is no thing to take to its logical conclusion here. These are all just observable truths that happen in a different context. It's like, yeah, man, it would suck if you failed your ACT and then you immediately died. In the real world, you fail your ACT and it takes about 5 years for you to be poor, broke, and not insured. So, like, there's nothing to chew on. There's nothing to go into. And I mean, we haven't
And
talked
so
about the
then
characters because the characters don't. They don't.
the thing then though about like this movie not really having any larger concepts by which to grasp is that, then it becomes a movie about characters who have to overcome a problem. And these movies just never got there. Like it
No.
never gets to a point where a character solves any problem that they have.
Yeah.
And so
No.
it's not an interesting like dystopian action narrative when you feel like none of the characters ever make even the slightest gain.
It's God. You know what? If I can make a stretch here and compare this to the thing that we were just talking about, in that, like, Bioshock has a lot.
Parasites,
Well,
parasites.
BioShock has a lot of, it has those problems where the kind of the macro is kind of what you're focused on, and the micro has a lot of little issues. But because it focuses its priorities elsewhere, there's so much to dig into with that some of the shortcomings just not end up mattering. The thinning is something where it's like all of the micro problems exist, but there is no focus. There's no thing that it does super duper well or feels interested in doing for you to go, oh, okay, maybe it doesn't work here, but this part about, like, the characters are compelling. The characters are not compelling. The acting is not good. The filmmaking is not good. There is
The dialogue
simply
is not good.
no, there is
Literally, like,
no
just like
way to measure this movie that makes it not a categorical failure.
it's immediately, it's immediately bad. It's like the
Yes,
first scene in the movie
bad.
Is Peyton List giving her brother a,
Sure.
a computer contact lens that he's going to use to cheat on the test.
Yeah.
She leans in and goes, "Don't tell anyone about this." And in the shot, in the background, are two children sitting on a bed behind them. It's that type of shit. Just like basically inept.
And, also, there's so much, like, they go out of their way to build this dystopia, which is technically supposed to be in 2040, I believe, it's a mass surveillance state. How the fuck are you going to get away with any of this shit in a mass surveillance state? The cameras in this universe are so fucking inept. Again, it's mostly people sneaking around the interiors of buildings that people should be able to find with camera technology that exists now, let alone 20 years in the fucking future.
It
Like,
reminded me
come
of that
on.
movie. Did you see that movie, The Circle, with Tom Hanks and Emma
No, but I
Watson that
know a
came
lot
out
of
around
people
this
who
time?
did and said that it was super fucking boring.
It's really bad. It's really boring. It's also similarly a movie that has a lot of ideas about societal implications of technological developments that it frankly refuses to explore logistically
What if it was
through its
bad?
narrative or psychologically through its filmmaking.
No. it's such a staid affair. There's no pulse, no life, no vision, no like it's one of those things
When
where
you
it's like
when
I
you get
need
to
both.
when you get to the scene where all the characters take the thinning
Yeah.
and you're sitting there and you're just watching for 2 minutes, you're just cutting back and forth between people in a room poking a prop box that's meant to be a tablet that has nothing on it.
Nope.
Like in the scene where the most important thing in the world is happening, you literally do not see it happen.
It's also so funny. Rhiannon and I both noticed that when they're doing this, like they have like the screens are dimmed significantly. Like they're b black with like little holographic kind of UI menus and stuff. But when the movie cuts to show their faces, the tablet projects light onto their face and then will immediately cut to show us what's on the tablet and it's dimmed. It has no light. Like, that's the kind of thing we're dealing with here, where they can't even do a simple shot reverse shot that maintains visual continuity in one sequence. One, and hell,
In the
there
most
is a
important thing that happens in the movie,
I
in the first act.
I forgot the first scene in this movie contains a glaring editing continuity error. Somebody is talking to somebody else, and then it cuts and like breaks the 180 rule, and they're in a completely different position from where they were a moment ago, and you're like, whoa, hold on. What? Because it's close quarters. Like, how do you fuck that up that badly? You
That's
couldn't
the thing
manage.
about this is that I've loved really getting into the meat of like what were they actually trying to do with what this movie's narrative is? But I really do just think they're just that dumb.
The movie is a pitch. The movie is YA dystopia is big. Let's make our version of it. There is no passion. There is no greater drive. There is no, again, like even with the most uninspired of the YA, movies, like of Divergent, for instance, is it like, I still think the person who wrote those books cared about writing them. I don't believe a single fucking person cared about writing any of this shit. Like, and I am somebody who really wants to give things the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time, but I like there's nothing about this that isn't disgustingly corporate. It's manufactured, it's artifice, it is so empty. I couldn't even theoretically entertain the idea that there was legitimate artistic worth within either of these. Like, and I don't feel like that's even a stretch to say because if you watch them, I genuinely don't know how you could come to another conclusion other than that. I really, really don't.
That's the crazy thing about it is that these movies are so dumb that
So
even
dumb.
that even trying to approach them with the benefit of the doubt to understand its concepts, to identify some kind of artistic statement or at least even artistic goal is impossible.
It's one of those things where it's like the cruelest possible thing I can say is that the idea that anyone anywhere likes this movie makes me sad. It doesn't make me upset, it doesn't anger me, it doesn't confuse me. It just makes me go, "Oh, we're really at the point where this is deemed acceptable by some people. Like we have done such a bad job at ingratiating people into the arts and culture that this is on some level palatable to some people." And I just like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's a kid's thing, so like you can't critique it meaningfully. It's like, no, kids deserve good, intelligent things that are being made. Like they we do not need to use this as an excuse to be lazy. Like again, if you want like the thinning is simply just a stupid version of something that is actually thoughtful. Like you can have like the Hunger Games, might have its problems, but that is a story where it's like, wow, I really believe that Miss Suzanne Collins had some things to say and that are valuable and that can teach children lessons about things and that can help them recognize elements of dystopic fiction and how it echoes reality and how that's pretty fucking bad. Whereas if you watch this, it's so exaggerated that if you're like a kid or a teen who's even like into this kind of stuff, it doesn't like spark imagination. It doesn't spark like thought because it's so cruel. It's so stupid. It's so outlandish that you could never possibly be like, "Oh, I am afraid of this happening." Like the Thinning is a less plausible universe than the Hunger Games. I believe that we will descend into a battle royale style gladiatorial blood sport sooner than we will achieve the Thinning. I hand to God, that is my honest opinion. And that's like, oh Jesus, that's grim. That's quite grim.
It feels important for me to point this out as a person that this is my purview. Go watch if you're actually interested in a movie that deals with these ideas on a real level. Go watch the movie The Perfect Score, which is based on a true story about some real high school kids who actually tried to do a heist to cheat the SAT.
Ah, okay.
And
Okay.
it spends so much of the movie like actually getting into the heads of these characters and like what the thing represents. It's like fucking Sorcerer.
That's
It's not a
awesome.
great
Or
movie. It's not a great movie at all. But like Chris Evans is in it and it's really good. And I appreciate the sentiment that the movie is getting
go
at. It's much more worthwhile than something like
you
this.
go watch actually very good movie Bad Genius is kind of something that explores an idea like this, and especially in a setting in which the academic crackdown on these characters is such an intense feeling. Because like that was the thing that I was just like, I might be able to understand and get the wavelength on this because this is so cruel that if it effectively translates the dread of this concept somehow and makes you feel it, that might be something worthwhile because it's like, honestly, if you instituted the Thinning, you would get to your goal easily because kids would be so like pressured and anxious about this, they would kill themselves. And then that would be what you would use to curb the population. But instead, it's just treated like a bad thing that happens on a day in the year rather than, a literal like when the kids line up to the reaping in the Hunger Games, every single one of those children looks like they have stared death in the face. They all look fucking mortified and they can't do anything about it. When their names are called, they break down crying and some of them get shot because they refuse to. When it happens to characters in this movie, they're like, "Huh," and then they just walk out of the room. It's like, that's the best you got? Really? Bro.
It's just not good. It's
These
just
thinnings,
not good.
they're not good.
All right, tell me what I get for this one.
Okay. So I guess that means for this round, how do the points work?
Okay, so what are you gonna give me for the thinning?
Oh, thinning is a five. That's a
Okay.
that's a five.
If the thinning is a
Um,
five, then I'm only gonna score three from Highguard, and the five is gonna be ignored.
okay. Well,
So we are at un momento. I'm at 11 and you were at 12.
okay. Well, okay. So we've had a bit of a back and forth. We are
What a
we
wild start to this arc.
it's been a lot more tumultuous than I thought. I'm not gonna lie. It's been quite strange. And, you know, regardless of the validity of certain opinions, you know, we have
You're saying.
we have achieved, I feel more tense than I did last year now. I feel like there's stakes, like true, honest to goodness stakes. And I've had many ideas for recommendations this year, and a lot of them are multiple parts or just like things that respond to one each other or have a dialogue with each other for the sake of both continuity and just interesting discussion. And I have committed to doing that and will follow up here, but it is a hell of a risk. I don't know if you have experienced this at all, I don't know if you've experienced it partially or even really know what people think about this, just because these days it's kind of difficult to gauge. I don't even technically know what the consensus on what I'm recommending you is anymore. So I'm taking a bet here by doing this, and even then, I
This is your
don't know if
bad.
it's
This is our
better.
bad
This is
pick.
bad. This is the
Okay.
bad one.
I'm just making sure you
But
remember because it's gotten a little
and
bit fucky lately.
but here's the thing. I will have to contextualize it in the way that maybe you contextualized Cry Wolf to me. In that it's not necessarily a value judgment of purely how bad something is. This is more about measuring potential. This is
Ooh.
more about squandered potential than outright deficit of quality, or even just how much of a mess it could be. And it is something that I have not experienced in a while and will also be doing again because I am curious to see, because this is a think pieced thing. People still write about this to this day. And so, have you played Bioshock 2? Do you know anything about it? Okay, well, Bioshock 2 is interesting because the Bioshock games kind of seem to pick a particular like ideology to deconstruct. The first game is objectivism. The second game is communism. And then there's Bioshock Infinite. And that is a bit more curious.
Oh
That's
boy.
a game that's aged very interestingly. And from what I've heard about it a lot, I think it's fair to say that this game's stock has plummeted a good deal. Of the three games that were big that year, Bioshock Infinite's the one you don't really hear people talk about anymore. Last of Us, still indoors. Grand Theft Auto 5, still indoors. Bioshock, on the other hand, we haven't even heard about a new sequel. We don't even know if Ken Levine is going to make another game. So that said, I want to take a look at this because this is one of the most dramatic shifts I've ever seen like reception to something be. As in, this was heralded immediately as a landmark achievement
I was
for,
there. I
yeah,
remember this. I never played the game at the time, but I was there
and
when like the rapturous
oh yeah,
applause was on its way in.
and BioShock Infinite has a lot of ideas. Like if you thought that BioShock 1 maybe stuffed itself a little bit too full, BioShock Infinite is a five-course meal of ideas. But
Oof.
Jen, I want to specifically ask a question that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to. Do you know why Ken Levine chose objectivism to take down in BioShock 1?
No.
It's because they put down a bunch of random ideologies and picked them out of a hat. And that was what they chose. And I think that
You're
this,
you're are you messing with me?
no, I'm not. I
Uh,
think that this one fact explains so much about Levine as a writer and about BioShock Infinite that make it a just a mess to try and sift through. But that being said, I loved this game when it came out. I loved it. It was a favorite for years. I don't know what I think of it now. I really want to know. I want to know what you think about it just because I want to bounce ideas because this is a game I could see anyone feeling any way about. You could love this. I could love this. We could both hate it. We could both be totally indifferent. I have no fucking clue. But there's a catch. We have to do something I've never done before with it because technically Bioshock Infinite is not where Bioshock ends right now. There is a key piece of this game's story that is continued in the Burial at Sea DLC. We have to play that too because we revisit Rapture And that story goes some places, and we're gonna go there.
I don't know anything about this
Do
DLC.
not look up anything about these games. Nothing. Go in totally blind because there's so many things that I'm thinking of specifically that I just know are gonna like those problems that you had with Bioshock 1 that I had too. I want you to think about them constantly. And I want you to see if those problems have perhaps manifested elsewhere and maybe even mutated into much, much bigger, much, much worse problems.
Ooh, this is crazy. This is great.
This is
I'm
where I wanted to
loving
go. Like
this.
BioShock, I wanted to talk
This
about, but
this is awesome.
this is where I wanted to take us. I was like, I knew when I had someone I vicariously kind of experienced the Burial at Sea DLC, and I was like, I have so much to say about this, but I need to play it for myself, and I have to talk about it with someone who isn't just me. Because man, this is gonna be dense. BioShock Infinite's not a long game, but
I think I'm also going to take a risk because here's the thing.
ooh,
When we started this show, I made a little note on my phone that just had a list of like the first things that I thought of that I would do
naturally,
for the show.
naturally,
Things that I've gone years of loving and thinking like Jake would like that, and we just never got around to it for some reason.
exactly.
I made that list a short time after you told me about the show and a short time after we did the first episode. I'm going to recommend the first thing to be released that I ended up putting on the short list for this show.
Ooh,
It's a thing that I don't know much about the reception towards, so I'm not sure. I mean, I've heard generally good things about this,
okay.
but it's going to be from somebody that I know we both have strong feelings about. We are going to watch a new anime from one of anime's best and brightest that I've seen not enough talk about. We are going to watch Shinichiro Watanabe's new show, Lazarus.
Ooh, I know nothing about this.
It's got one of those great one-line premises. I've only watched the first episode. I watched the first episode and then I was like, nope, we got to do this because I want to see where the rest of this goes. I want to do this for the show. Let's do it. So I put the rest of it on
Ooh.
the back burner until I could get it in front of you. But it's got a great log line that makes me think this is going to be an awesome like follow-up
What's the
to
log line? I gotta get
log
hook me.
line is it's the near future. There's this drug, this miracle drug that's been curing all diseases that's left society in a much better place. And then the architect of the drug comes out and makes a statement to the public saying, actually, everyone who took my miracle drug is going to die within like so long after taking it. Like there's a dead man's switch in the drug that if you took it once, you will die X amount of time after taking it. And I did this to eliminate the human race because reasons. It's
Yeah,
not really all fully gone into, but
yeah.
it's about a team of bounty hunters that are put together to find the doctor, find a cure, save the world.
This is so much more high concept than Watanabe stuff he's done after Bebop. It's the first thing that sounds like it's on Bebop's scale. That's so fascinating. Huh, wow. I, I think I saw there was a show that he had that was about these two musicians that I really liked. I thought was really cute. Can't remember what it was called, but there's also he does a lot of shows about musicians. and those are interesting. But there's a part of me that has always been like, I do kind of miss when Watanabe did like high concept stuff. I
This
miss
is him
when
getting back into that high concept sci-fi after being away
interesting.
from it for so long because he did Space Dandy and this is his real like first
Yeah,
big
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sci-fi gig since Space Dandy about 10 years ago.
What service is this on?
It's on Max. I believe it was a Max
Oh,
original, so it's still
sick.
there.
Okay, okay, okay. Awesome. Interesting. Wow, there's gonna be a lot of lofty concepts in this next episode.
I'm ready.
We may be here a while, folks. Wow. Next time on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, which of the two of them will go 6 feet under, and which of them will come back to life? Find out.